Hello everyone, welcome into our latest live broadcast. Today, it is Wednesday, the 15th of April, 2026. Yesterday was the Big Patch Tuesday of the month, and there were a lot of updates. If you haven't gotten yours yet, expect it automatically within a few days, or just check it manually, and do it when you have a few extra moments, because it takes a little while. It's a pretty big, it's a number of updates, but one of them in particular is pretty large, but I haven't seen any consequences from it yet. And we'll talk more about that in future broadcasts, because today we're focusing on a brand new Kickstarter campaign from the folks over at Zike. Zike, as you recall, made a very fast, they still do, about, it's an NVMe enclosure, USB 4. And we initially reviewed this unit right here September of 24, so about a year and a half ago. And since then, they've come out with a prototype that we have here that they're starting a Kickstarter campaign on. That's like this on steroids, I guess. Well, we'll talk about that today. That's what today's show is all about. And because that Kickstarter just started today, and because Zike has included us so early on in their prototyping, we're like, yeah, we'd love to talk about it. So that's what we're talking about today. But first, just a quick shout out to our friends at VIP-URCDKEys, because when I need to buy a Windows or an Office license key, I can't just go buy a pirated one online. I have a business to run, and I don't want my business to die because of some silly, being too cheap to to spend $10 on a license key, or whatever the price difference is. So the folks over at VIP-URCDKEys, I found that this company and their parent company, they sell legitimate license keys that they stand behind 100%. You've got 6 months of free support, and they give you everything you need, and it's very consistent. It's not like one time it's a good experience and one time it's a bad and good luck. It's always a good experience, and if it isn't, they make it right. So for me, I need to get my business running everything properly, get things done once the first time so I can help as many people as possible. And I said, can we work together? Because I'd like to be able to offer my audience this information behind the scenes of where I get my license keys. Would you give us some kind of a discount or an incentive? And they agreed. So essentially what we've got is, if you look below any of our videos, let me just show you. Like here's a video, right, from last month. And if I click on underneath the video, there's a little description there, and it says more. Click on that to open the video description. And in that video description, you'll find the links for the Microsoft Windows and Office products right there. You can just, whatever thing you're looking for, click on it. And those prices you see are after the discount, the coupon code. So when we click on the link, you'll see it opens the site directly to that product page, so you don't have to go Googling and searching for it and emailing me, asking me why you can't find it. Please use our links, because, look, we're not making a commission on this, okay? So I'm not telling you to use the links for me. I'm telling you to use the links for you so you don't have to work any harder. So basically, you go to buy the product. You need to log in. You can create a free account if you don't have one. Put the coupon code in once you've added the product to your cart, and you'll see that the price drops to the price I've got listed in the video notes. And then just go through the payment process, right? You can use PayPal, which a lot of vendors don't use. You can use a regular credit card or Google Pay, and you're going to get an email from your registered account for your private product key, right? They're not going to post that publicly. They need to be able to talk to you privately to give you that product key securely. So they're not there to collect your account information. I mean, they're there to be able to provide you what you're asking for, and to do it privately. And like any other transaction, when you buy things from Amazon, I don't know about it, right? As far as your account history, you can log into your Amazon account and you can see everything you've ever purchased from the day you created your Amazon account. Same concept here. If you ever need to go back and get your product key, you don't have to email support. Go back to the site, log in with the account email and password you set up for free, and your entire purchase history is just there forever. So that way you can always go back, see your previous purchases, pull your product keys if you ever need to. And of course, if you're wondering, well, how does this whole thing work? You can either provide your own copy of Windows or Office, provided it's the right version for the product key you're buying. Or when you buy the product key, they will include a download link from Microsoft for that specific product along with the product key for that specific product. So either way it works, whichever you prefer. And if you need any help beyond that, they have 24/7 support. And if you have any issues beyond that, you can reach out to us directly. I stand behind them 100%. Even though it's not a commission-based link, I am that confident that you're not going to have any problems, that in the rare circumstance that you might, I'm here to tell you, I got you. You're going to be fine. Nobody's stealing your money. Nobody's going to rip you off. So anyway, I just put it out there, and I can't thank the folks over at VIP-URCDKEYs. Get the name out, Carey. I can't thank them enough for extending what I get as a business to my viewers. A lot of places don't want to do that. They're just like, no, you're an OEM builder. That's fine. They're not. And they didn't say that. They said, oh, no, we'd like to join you. And I think it sounds like a great idea. So there you go. If you're looking for a license key for Windows or Office, that's where I get mine, in case you were wondering, and that's exactly how I buy them. I use my own coupon code. I pay the same price you pay. I get the same service you get. Nothing's done special for me. I'm not getting any freebies or anything like that. So take that for whatever it's worth and keep it in the back of your mind if you ever need a license key. Because you have 6 months of free support, I would not buy a license key until you need it. Don't hoard them, because if you go beyond the 6 months and you still haven't used the key, it's not that they won't help you, but it's a very, very questionable, suspicious activity, something a scammer would do. So you have to kind of get over that conversation where they're trying to figure out what's going on here, because it doesn't add up. So if you buy the key and then you use it within a couple weeks, it still gives you plenty of time, if there are any issues, to find any issues, to reach out to support. But beyond that, it's very suspect. So that just ends up, you know, if you're already irritated and now you've got to prove you're not a scammer at this point, because that's a really weird thing to do. It's unusual. Wouldn't say weird, it's unusual. It just adds to something that's already frustrating. So you can reduce your frustration if you wait till you need it, and then or if you know you're going to need it soon, within the next couple weeks. Because that's why I'm leaving these links up as long as possible. I don't want to twist your arm and say you better get it today. I don't do that. I'm not that pushy salesman. And besides, if you buy it or you don't, I don't make any more or less money. So basically, I just want you to have a good experience. I want them to have a good experience with us. And if you guys are happy, that automatically makes me happy. Nobody has to step on somebody else to get up, you know, further ahead. We can all work together, and that's what we're out to do here. So there you go. Today, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about the Zike NVMe enclosure that is just started their Kickstarter campaign. We're going to look at that. First, I want to give a shout out and a thank you to both our friend Buster out there in Scotland and Mark Gaines in Northern Ireland for their super chat replacements, their Amazon gift cards in lieu of Super Chat. Super Chat takes 30% of whatever you contribute to this channel, and they make us wait 30 to 60 days before they pass the money on to us. With Amazon gift cards, Amazon takes nothing, and we get the gift card within just a couple minutes. And on top of that, we're probably spending all the money at Amazon to buy stuff. So in today's demonstration, we had to buy a Beijing S880 NVMe drive. Now, this was purchased prior, not recently, but it's used, the way we afford that is through the support of our community. We don't have any relationship with the manufacturer. They don't know who we are. They've never even left a comment on a video. We just buy it like you do. Okay, so what I'm trying to do on my channel is extend reality of what you might experience. Not what I would experience as a reviewer, not what I would experience as a celebrity that gets things for free. I go out and spend my hard-earned money the same way you do. And the companies aren't charging me any less than what they're charging you, and I'm getting the same product you're getting. So I would love to see that being the normal with YouTube reviews, but unfortunately a lot of them are paid for, and in my opinion, they're commercials. They're not reviews, but they have the gall, these content creators, to call them reviews. So I personally take issue with that. I think it's deceiving, and it's not transparent. They're hiding who's paying the bills in reality. So if they're doing that, how do you trust them? How do you trust any opinion they have about a product when they won't even fully disclose honesty about how they even got the product? So with that being said, they're free to do that. They're not breaking any laws, and I'm free to not like it. That's all I'm trying to tell you. And I won't participate in that little game. If I'm getting paid by a company to showcase their product, I'm going to tell you, because that absolutely makes a difference on your opinion. If somebody gives you something that you didn't pay for and you don't like it, you'd say, well, you know, it was free, so it's still better than nothing. But if you spent your hard-earned money on it and you feel like this isn't as advertised, you'd probably be pretty outraged. I know I would be. So if I wouldn't want somebody to do that to me, why would I do that to somebody else? That's how I was raised anyway. Now, let's get talking about the NVMe enclosure. The Zike drive, do you guys remember this? This one, we had a weird cable issue with the minis forum. We were testing on the MSO1 and we switched cables and it worked, and we still don't have any answer for that. However, it was only on the minis forum. Every other computer we plugged it into USB 4, it worked exactly as advertised. So I don't know what that's all about, and I don't know why changing the cable made any difference. But the two cables this comes with were consistently incompatible with that specific one model of minis forum and nothing else. So that's why I'm not making a big deal about it. That was 1.5 years ago. Now, this is the first time any company's ever done this. What they did, what Zike did, is they said, would you be interested in looking at a prototype? We'd like your feedback. We're going to start this Kickstarter campaign. And about 6 weeks ago, we got sent this. Now, I've never received a package that was just in a plastic bag without any documentation, without any information whatsoever. It's just, this isn't fully functioning. Okay, they told me, they said it's mostly, but they're going to add some features and make some changes, and part of that was based on what feedback they got. Now, I think they're a German company, if I'm not mistaken, and what they sent is this little screwdriver and the NVMe drive. So I've been holding on to this. I haven't had a chance to play with it until last night, and I hooked it up and kind of familiarized myself with it, thinking that in the few weeks that have, over a month that we've had this, maybe there'll be more information about it. And unfortunately, I just have to kind of figure it out intuitively, which I think is what they wanted me to do, because they want to see where my misunderstandings are. And so we're going to go over that today, and I'll show you what I've learned. And there may be more information I don't have yet, but this also isn't a completely finished product. What I've got here may never be. This may forever be a prototype, because it may not just need a firmware update. It may need some circuitry changes. I don't know. So today, that's what we're going to talk about, and why did they even come out with this when they already have this? That's also a little bit confusing for me, but it may not be for you. You may say, oh, that makes total sense, and you can explain it or tell me how you feel about it. Or if it's just me thinking, if you've already got this, then why would you need this? And so, we've got some marketing materials from Zike that tell you all the new features of this. My question is, if this costs more, are the added features worth the extra money? And that's where I'm asking you to let me know if you'd pay a little bit more for the difference between the current Kickstarter campaign for the latest model that is still in development, or just last year's model, which, again, we'll talk about those differences. In the meantime, let me say hello to everybody joining us in the chat. Welcome in. Who do we have here? Sean Skinner saying hello. David Graham joins us, along with Luke Greeny and John Lewis, Mark Gaines, and Ben Laird. I also see, of course, Mara, our channel administrator, hanging out with everybody there in chat. Michael Lavelle joins us. Alberto Gomez saying hello. There's Dennis K. and Jim Kenny and Scott all saying hello. Andy W6AD joins us, as does Reedy Everything. Richard DeFries, Stephen DeToit, Mark Leibowitz saying hello. Says he just got back from delivering a nicely equipped Minisforum UM750L Slim Mini PC. This one's being used with 3 monitors and multiple USB hubs. Client has a NAS as well. Nice. Rick Lakes joins us, says hello. Welcome into Rick Lakes, joining us from Minnesota. All right. Jose Lopez also saying hello. Welcome in, everybody. Good to see everyone. Hope you're having a wonderful Wednesday. Midweek. It's actually pretty nice out in Phoenix. It's going to get hot real quick. It's warm, but it's not hot. And I'll take warm, because when hot hits, it's going to stay here for 4 months. So come on, September. All right. In the meantime, let's talk about the Zike drive. First place I think we should start is looking at the links provided that Mara has provided in our video notes for the Kickstarter page from Zike that starts today, and the official Zike website promoting this upcoming model. All right, so let's go back over to, let's see, Zike's website. Let's start there. And let me grab my window capture. There it is. Okay, so what do we have? This enclosure, well, we've got a typo. I see that. We have a fingerprint. Fingerprint. I think somebody forgot the T. So fingerprint could be required to access the drive inside. It is USB 4, which is 4,000 megabit per second transfer speed. That's about 4,000 megabytes. Hold on a minute. Yeah, that's right. So 40 gigabit per second USB 4, right? Same as the previous model, by the way, the Zike drive I have in the box here. Worldwide tracking, that's an Apple-only feature. Active cooling. The previous model is passive, so it's a bit larger and heavier. It's a giant heatsink. This one is smaller and lighter, but that little tiny fan has to spin really fast, so it's a little buzzy. They put a little RGB on it, but that fan has to run at all times, so your drive will overheat. Is that a good thing because it's smaller and lighter, or is that a bad thing because at some point the fan could fail? And you know, if you're out of warranty, good luck finding another fan with that little teeny tiny thing. So I don't know. I really don't know, but I'm on the fence about this. It says it's got a smart display. I would argue that it's a display, but it's not a touch screen, and it's not really all that smart. It's just feeding information provided to it like a monitor. So it's not like it has any apps built into it. There's nothing smart from what I would call smart. And then of course it has an included USB cable, just like the previous model. And in the box, it's supposed to also have a longer cable, so that, you know, if you want this to just be quick, grab it and go, you don't have to worry about forgetting the cable. But if you're somewhere where you want a longer cable, or you want to remember to bring the extra cable, I do believe, just like the previous model, you get the short built-in cable, and then you have a longer cable for, you know, situations where you prefer that. Now, if we look at the unit, you see it's got a fan logo here. It's got the fingerprint sensor here, which is also a button. And you've got this orange button here on the front, and that's it. That's all there is. And then the cable sits right up in the top up here, and just slide it out, and I'll show you that in a minute. Let's play this video. That was last year's model. And now here's the new one. And they still sell last year's model. So if you don't have an Apple computer, then the Find My Device isn't going to work. That is an Apple-only feature. And you'll notice in this demo here, they're showing a lot of Apple product. Okay, so you got to see the screen there. Of course, there's the little tiny fan that's a little bit buzzy with the RGB. The fingerprint. And I guess it's a little bit faster, and the controller on it's a bit more compatible with AMD and Intel USB 4 options. Although I didn't have a problem with the previous model, the problem was with the cables. So, okay, so one of the big things they are really talking about here is the Apple Find My feature. So the Find My feature is for compatible devices that you bond to your Apple account. You bind them together, and I guess it'll report the last place it was before it had power. So there's no battery in this. Essentially, if it's unplugged, it's off, and if it's off, there's no way to communicate to it. It's got like, with the Find My feature, you can push a button with certain devices that are compatible to have it like send out an audio alert. So you can, where's my remote control? And you push the button, and say the remote control had a little speaker, it'd go beep, 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 and you can listen for it and find your darn remote control. In order for that to work, it would have to be plugged in, right? Because it doesn't have power otherwise. And if it was plugged in, I would just think you'd find the thing it's plugged into would be a lot bigger and easier to find. So I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around who is that for? And regardless of the Find My feature, if it's going to show it on a map where it was last located, the last time it was powered on, or it's going to send a beep, Windows PC users need not apply. That feature will not work for you. That is an Apple-only feature. So I do think maybe they're focusing this on Apple creative types, but it is Windows compatible. So a little bit about the fingerprint sensor there, that they now make up to 16 terabyte NVMe drives, and this will work with the biggest NVMe drives made today. The cooling fan, it says it's adjustable. It's either in auto mode or turbo. So turbo is going to spin that bad boy at 10,000 RPM. It's a little bit loud and buzzy at 10,000 RPM, and I don't know why you just wouldn't leave it on auto mode. Personally, that makes no sense for a human to override it because of a human's psychiatric concerns. I think that auto mode should just be left in auto mode and leave it alone, but again, that's just my opinion. That's what this little orange button does. Its only purpose, the only reason it exists, is to turn the fan to turbo mode or not turbo. It's either auto or turbo. Again, I have no idea why anybody would want that in turbo, but maybe there's some use case scenarios you can think of that just aren't occurring to me, that I'm just not in that world, I guess. I don't know. To have a dedicated button for a feature you don't need, in my opinion, doesn't make any sense. That's all that button is for. Does not provide any other benefit whatsoever. So here's a little teeny tiny, like 4-inch cable that's included. And then what they're calling a smart display, to me, is not smart. It's telling us the temperature of the enclosure. So if you take the drive out of this unit, it doesn't know there's not a drive in it. And I'll demonstrate that. If the screen was so smart, wouldn't it know if you had a drive in it or not? Now, to be fair, I'm not aware of an NVMe enclosure that knows if the drive's been removed. It just won't work. So this will pop up and it'll just look exactly the same as what's pictured. You'd never know there wasn't a drive in it. It doesn't tell you. So it is a display, okay? It's not a touch screen. Nothing about this is touch. That is a physical button. That is a fingerprint sensor. That's it, along with the orange button for the fan. And I was really struggling trying to figure out how to get to certain menu options, only to find out there aren't any. So at least what you can get into is just with the button and the fingerprint. That's it. So this is a little bit more about the track by device. finding it with sound. Again, if you don't own an Apple computer, that will not function for you. They're promoting that you don't need any passwords, right? That this is fingerprint encryption, but what happens if you want to sell it? What about the registered fingerprints? What if you can't, what if you, for whatever reason, you can't get past the fingerprint reader, something's wrong? How do you get your data back off of it? I hope you made backups. I foresee this is going to create a lot of tech support calls of people that can't get into their device for one reason or another, and there's no solution that I'm aware of. But we'll see. I mean, it's still in development. And this is why they sent it to me. They want the feedback. So I'm going to tell you, you're going to get a lot of tech support calls of people locking themselves out or buying a used unit on eBay and now they can't get into it because it wasn't cleared out. And then if you need the master fingerprint to clear all the other fingerprints and you don't have the master fingerprint, how do you clear it? And if you can clear it, then why wouldn't a thief just clear it if they stole it from you, negating the entire point of the fingerprint encryption to begin with? So either way, you're screwed. Either way, you're going to get a support call if you're the manufacturer. So I really can't understand the paranoia that exists with some part of our population that thinks their stuff is that important that they will lock themselves out of it in an encrypted form that they even can't get it back themselves. And that's the risk you will take if you use this kind of technology. And if there's a way to get it back, then why use it at all? Because then why wouldn't a thief just do that and negate this whole thing anyway? So that's why I say either way, that's a losing battle as far as I'm concerned. That is what I would consider security theater. And it doesn't really do much in the way of preventing anything, but instead opens other opportunities for a support email or phone call that somebody locks themselves out. And I think they're going to get a lot of those personally. But that's just me. That's just my feelings. These are all my opinions and my concerns and what I would advise a customer to stay away from the fingerprint stuff. I would. Absolutely, yes. If it means you can't get your data back without that fingerprint, well, it did its job, didn't it? That's all I can tell you. That's what you wanted. That's what you got. All right, so this kind of gives you an idea of how much data this can store in the sense if it were a bunch of 4K movies or JPEG photos or MP3 files or Steam Deck games or films. I guess that's assuming a 16 terabyte drive, which would be, I don't know, 16 terabytes, $2,000, $2,500. I don't know many people that'd be putting something of that value in this enclosure, but you can. A lot about the cooling. Okay, we'll get back to that. Aluminum design, yeah, just like the previous model. Compatible with over 1,000 devices. I mean, it's USB, so I would think that it would work with all USB, not just some. So to me, this idea that you would have to specify this, if it's USB, it should work with all USB compliant devices, period. You shouldn't have to say 1,000 plus different makes and models of hardware and drives and computers. That should be assumed in my opinion. But some close-up photos there. The model here, Z991. It says learn more on Kickstarter. So let's jump over to Kickstarter. And they just started the campaign. It looks like they've already got 176 backers, 177 backers. And again, they've got fingerprint again. More of the same information provided here that we've already seen. There's some videos from Germany from some content creators that have English translation. I don't see anything in English other than the video I'm making you right now. I think we're the first English-speaking YouTube channel to review this, and we certainly appreciate getting early hands-on with it. Traditional SSDs disappear silently when they're lost. Zike Vault doesn't because your data deserves to be found. What does this auto charging mean? As far as I know, this has no battery in it. See, so I'm not sure what this auto charging means, because I don't think there's anything chargeable on this device. I believe when it's unplugged, it's off, and that what the tracker is going to show you is the last place it was the last time it had power. But if it's saying it's auto charging, that implies that it has enough of a charge to report where it is. But that doesn't make any sense, because how long would that battery last? It couldn't last long. And there's nothing on the quote-unquote smart display to tell you the state of the charge, which usually implies there's nothing to charge. So I don't know what auto charging means in this context. But it is tied in with Apple devices, the smartwatch, the iPad, the iPhone, the iMac. So I would just say, I'm going to leave it till I'm not exactly sure. And even if I did know, I don't use Apple products. I never have. So this is irrelevant to me or any other non-Mac user, regardless. So again, find it with sound. That's the Find My feature. Yeah, you'd have to pair it to your iPhone or your iPad or your laptop, and then verify that they can see each other. Well, it works one way, I suppose. And I guess if you're somebody that's very disorganized and you're constantly losing things, maybe that's a feature you benefit from. If I didn't put things back where they belonged, I got punished, and as a child, that kind of set into to my personality as an adult. So I always know where my car keys are. Always. I always know where my wallet is. There's certain things that, for the most part, the worst thing I lose is I set a drink down and I get distracted and I can't find where I put my drink down. But nothing that's so critical that I would have a fingerprint encryption and stuff like that, and then mindlessly set it down somewhere. Or if somebody were to steal it, I suppose that would be a concern. But if it's encrypted, I guess they're not going to be able to get anything off of it, right? Always powered for tracking. Zike Vault's Find My battery. Find My. Oh, the Find My is the name of the feature from Apple. It has a guide for charging whenever the SSD is connected. It says to your laptop, but it could be anything, right? That can charge it, that it's plugged into. It stays powered as long as you use it. Well, batteries don't stay powered as long as you. It's not how that works. I think what they're saying is it stays charging so long as you're plugged in. I think that's what they're trying to say here. That's a weird way that they phrase that. There's an example of the fingerprint lock. So again, there's benefits and consequences to this. So for you to decide. Locked, unlocked, denied. Okay, how to use it. Here's some documentation, which is more than I got when I received the unit. It'll hold up to 22 fingerprints, and each fingerprint, when you register it, you've got to press to register the fingerprint. You got to rest your finger on that sensor in 8 different positions, and then you'll have a little dot that lights up, and then once all 8 positions are recorded, then that one fingerprint is now saved, and you can do that 21 more fingerprints. And then here's how you can delete the fingerprints, but you better have the master administrator fingerprint to do that. Otherwise, there's no instruction on how to reset it. And again, if there were, then what would be the point of the fingerprint reader? So we'll see if they end up coming out with some kind of a bypass for this, because inevitably that's going to be a support call. I guarantee it. And I mean, common. People will lock themselves out of this constantly. They talk about the transfer speeds on this, but USB 4 is USB 4. So the USB 4 from a year and a half ago was 40 gigabits a second. And today's USB 4 is still 40 gigabits a second. So what they're talking about here is a slight boost in the read and write speeds, but maybe just 1% faster than the model from before. It's not, they're technically correct, but it's not night and day. It's pretty negligible, the difference. If you compare it to just like a regular USB type A port that runs at 10 gigabits per second versus 40 gigabits per second, different scenario. But if we're comparing it to the previous Zike model, very minimal difference. A little bit more about the capacity, demonstration of how the drive goes inside, a little bit more about the compatibility. This will take just one of two different size NVMe drives. There are about 4 different sizes, physical sizes, but the most common is 2280, and probably 2230, 2242, and 2260 would be in that order. In fact, I would even argue 2242 is probably more common than 2230. I may have seen 2 2230 sized NVMe drives in my life. They're very uncommon in my world, but I don't, maybe that's an Apple thing. I don't know, but 2280 is primarily 99.9% of the time the type of SSD I'm going to see in my line of work on desktops, mini PCs, and laptops. So I don't care personally that it supports anything other than 2280, the most common NVMe, physical size of an NVMe that's out there in the world, worldwide. So I guess the reason they're saying the display is smart is because it's real-time information. But information about what? We're only getting the 5 volts that's coming in off the USB and how many watts it's using at any given time. I'm not quite sure how that's helpful. Then it tells us if our fan is in turbo mode or not here, where it says turbo in the lower left, and then the temperature in Celsius of the case, assuming there's a drive in it, because again, it does not know. This thing that says on in the upper left, that's I guess supposed to be a speaker. And you can turn that on or off, which if you're not using the Find My feature on an Apple device, it'll never sound anyway. So I don't know why you'd want to turn it off. And it's not real easy. Like, how do you turn that off? I'll let you know when I get the documentation, because I'm not exactly sure. I've accidentally turned it off, and I'm not quite sure what I did. So documentation on this is going to be important, because a lot of this is not intuitive. It's not obvious, at least not to me. So again, there's just a lot of talking about Mac here. Mac, 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 and Mac, when we don't do anything whatsoever with Apple on this channel. Again, they promote as though it's something to boast about, 10,000 RPMs on the fan, but I wouldn't boast about that. The faster that fan spins, the higher pitched it's going to be, and the more vibration it's going to give out. So to me, I wouldn't brag about this. If anything, I wouldn't even mention it. I'd talk about maybe how much airflow is going to move between auto mode and turbo mode. You know, how many cubic, how do they measure airflow? Cubic feet per meter, whatever it is, CFMs. That's what I would have done. I would not have talked about these numbers, because that higher number means a higher pitched fan. And when that fan burns out, and it will eventually at some point burn out, I don't know how you're going to get a replacement. So with the previous model from 18 months ago or so, it's passively cooled. It has no fan. Therefore, it's physically larger and, you know, just a big heat sink. For me personally, without the fingerprint reader, without the smart screen, and for less money, I could get last year's model, and the performance difference is very, very minor. So, you know, you can see where I stand on this. I'm trying to figure out who would want this. Like, if you have some ideas, maybe you yourself could see buying this one over last year's model and spending a little bit more, joining the Kickstarter campaign. Please tell me, in your opinion, why you would buy this model over last year's model. Here's an example of the differences. Last year's model, the Zike drive, doesn't have the Apple Find My feature, which we can't use. It doesn't have the advanced fingerprint lock, which I think you're just going to lock yourself out. Just give it time. Even me, I will eventually lock myself out of it. An active cooling fan. See, now I see that as a bad thing. You might see it as a good thing, because they can make the enclosure smaller. It's not a giant heat sink, and it's not so heavy. It'll fit in your pocket, but the other one fits in my pocket just fine. So it's not like it's a big deal. It's not like it's that much smaller. It's a little bit smaller, a little narrower, but pretty much the same length, and just not quite as wide. Pretty much the same thickness. Again, maybe some people may care more about that than I do, I guess. Of course, they're both going to come with the USB 4 cable that slots into the side of it, so you don't have to worry about forgetting the cable, which includes the integrated cable slot for storing the cable. And then, of course, they promote this display screen, which I don't really think displays anything useful, personally. I don't see any point of the screen that couldn't have been covered with an LED. A red LED if it's locked, and a green LED if it's unlocked. Anything other than that, I don't know. I mean, on the one hand, you don't need any software to register the fingerprint, in that you certainly need a screen or something to tell you when your fingerprint's good to go, or maybe they could blink an LED, quite frankly. Blink it red if your fingerprint didn't register, and blink it green, and you got to do that, say, 7 or 8 times to register a fingerprint. They could have gotten away with LEDs on this, but it definitely doesn't look as cool. It's not so high-tech, aesthetically, cosmetically. But I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with it, but it seems like a pretty minor and very specific upgrade from the previous model that really introduces features for me that I would not pay more for features I don't want. I don't want a cooling fan. I don't want a fingerprint reader, and I don't use Apple devices, so I don't need any Apple features. So to pay more, what am I going to get differently than the model from 18 months ago? And that's my question. This is where I'm confused. Because they're starting this off, early bird model pricing at $129. So they talked to us about this last month. No, this is March of 25. We talked to them in March of 26. So they've had this in planning for a while. And then I guess they got some samples out in September, December for internal house. You know, and then between December and April, that's when they talked to us of 26 here, April of 26. The Kickstarter starts today, and they'll go through testing. The Kickstarter's 30 days. And it looks like it won't ship until October. So if you back this now and lock in that price, you've got May, June, July, August, September, October, 6 months before you'll expect to receive anything in the mail, which I have no doubt they're going to ship. I mean, I've already got a prototype in my hand, so it's not like they're going to take the money and run. It seems very unlikely. Plus, they've got a track record, right? They did this previously with the Zike drive, and that was a Kickstarter campaign, and all those backers' orders were fulfilled. But like any other Kickstarter, they've got to talk about the risks and the challenges that, you know, something could happen where it doesn't, prices and things like that, like RAM prices, affected the ability of meeting the costs of manufacturing that people had reserved on Kickstarter, where they would lose money on every unit they sold and potentially go out of business if they fulfilled those orders. So they're this is kind of boilerplate stuff. It's likely stuff like this isn't going to happen. But on the other hand, it's also likely the price of RAM and SSDs didn't go up like it did. That's the first time in my entire career I've ever seen that happen. But, you know, if you consider yourself a very unlucky person, maybe stay away from Kickstarter stuff, because you're basically an early investor. And look, investors lose money. Not everything somebody invests in is going to guarantee that they'll make their investment or more back. But that's the concept. And the risk is you could lose your investment. So on the other hand, they have a minimal amount of money that they need to make within 30 days. So they want $10,000 minimal. And they've already exceeded it. They're already at $31,000. But what I was going to tell you is if there weren't enough backers of this to hit 10,000 by the end of 30 days, then you just get your money back and the whole thing's... It has to meet this goal by the end of the 30 days. Otherwise, they're not sending you anything and you're going to get your money back. If they do meet the goal, you will not get your money back. That's when your money actually gets taken out of your account. And then the company will send progress updates with regards to where they are in the manufacturing process and what you can expect, that you get insider investor updates in progress until it ships. And that's pretty standard on Kickstarter. Pretty standard processes. Okay, so let me go over to the chat and see if you guys can give me some examples or even just your opinions about what you think about it. Andy says right now it's 139. Okay, so they must have sold out of the tier at 129. Is that what happened? And Dennis mentions, yeah, it's not exactly a buyer market for the internal NVMe drives themselves. They're very expensive, so not a great time to be selling an accessory on RAM or SSDs that are so pricey right now. Good point. Eddie Casanova says hello from Philadelphia. Dennis wants to know, why would you carry it with you if it was so valuable? You know, I wonder the same thing, Dennis. If it's that darn important, can you give me a use case scenario? And this is a question I posed to Zike, but I haven't, I just literally posted it to them, so I haven't got an answer yet. Can you give me an actual use case scenario of how you anticipate whoever you design this for? And don't just tell me a content creator. Give me a specific. Tell me what kind of content creator, using what kind of give me a real world example of how this would be used, right? So somebody goes, well, it's good for like somebody, it's a, you know, content creator. Okay, well, the content creator is sharing everything publicly. Why would you need to encrypt if you're a content creator? And that doesn't make any sense. So what I'm saying is, walk me through the process. So you, Zike, you must picture a certain customer buying this. Who is this customer? Is this an Apple user? Because it sounds like you're really focusing on Apple users. So let's break this down to who this is for. So an Apple user who also needs data on the go that must be fast, meaning they must be moving large amounts of data, because if it was little amounts of just a small file, who cares how fast it is? It doesn't take very long to transfer over USB 3 if it's a small file. If it's 10 megs, who cares? It just transfers over pretty well instantly. And you can cut that in half to transfer that small 10 meg file to this. Who cares? It made a difference of 2 seconds. So give me an example of a position somebody might be in where they would need the fingerprint, they would need the smaller lightweight case, they need it encrypted, they need it as fast as possible, they need it as portable as possible. If it gets stolen or lost, they want to be able to find it. You're breaking it down into such subcategories that I don't know who's left but a handful of people. Unless I'm missing something, and this is just somebody wants it because it's cool, it doesn't really matter if it makes any sense, then so be it, then that's what it is. But if you look here, if we go to camera 2, get you a little bit more of a close-up, you'll see it's a little bit smaller. And right here, there's this little groove, and if I push on that, you'll see the cable starts to come out. It's a very short cable. Now, you could just as easily forget to put that back, but I don't think it's going to fall out of there. It fits in there pretty darn tight. You see, it won't go in this way. What about this way? Oh, I guess I got to go in only this way. But I don't think it matters which end of the cable goes in first. It's which end of the enclosure. So where the hole is that you pull the cable out, that's where it's got to go back in. Let me just turn the cable around. Yeah, it doesn't care either way. That is a very, very short cable. As for opening this, I'm going to have to bring this up to the camera and show you one of the concerns I have about this. If this is encrypted, but you could still just open it and take the drive out, wouldn't that also be a security concern? Even if the data on the drive is encrypted, wouldn't it still be? You have to open it, right? It's not sealed at the factory. So maybe this would be better if it came with an NVMe drive, like the Samsung external SSDs. They are sealed. You can't open them without destroying them, basically. And then you can buy them in different capacities. You don't source your own drive. That would be far more secure then whatever they're going to use to, if this has to be able to be open so you can switch the drive out, you've already got a security concern. I don't know any other way you can solve that other than seal it at the factory, which means you got to put the drive in at the factory. So that's why I feel like it's a lot of security theater, but I don't really feel like it's really secure. So let's take a look at what concerns me here. And I want you to keep in mind, this may not be the shipping product, okay? This is likely going to change, so they tell me. But do you see that little tiny screw? And I don't know if you can tell, but it's a Torx. It's a super teeny tiny little itty bitty Torx. And it includes this little screwdriver. Now here's what scares me. When I open this up, and I want to be very careful, this is the kind of a screw that you would take out of a watch. So if you're used to working with super teeny tiny, I mean minuscule parts like a watchmaker, that's how small that screw is. In fact, I would argue I have seen that exact screw in a watch, a mechanical watch, that exact same screw. Now, I don't work on watches a lot because, well, it's just not what I do, and it's very intricate and detailed work. But there's plenty of YouTube videos showing watch repair. And if you look at the specialty tools, the tweezers, the microscopes that these watch repairers have to use, it's very similar to what I'm going to show you right here, which is this little screw. And again, they'd have to do this in a way that's secure. So they're talking about maybe having a proprietary head on the screw so that you wouldn't be able to get that screw out without a special screwdriver. However, that's going to be a support call when people lose the screwdriver. It's going to be a support call when people lose this little tiny screw. And if it's just a latch that you can easily open, then it's not secure anymore. So you can't win this. As far as I can tell, every way you look at this, all you're doing is making your life more difficult. But some people like that. So let me see if I can get this screw out of here. And this driver's not magnetized, so the screw won't come out. And it's super teeny tiny. I don't even know if you're going to be able to see it. Let's go back to camera 2. See if you can see. I want to be very careful, because if that screw falls onto the floor, I will likely never find it. It is like a watch part. Got nothing coming out of there. Oh, I just set it down and it flew out. Did you see that? Now, to give you some concept of how small that screw is, I'm going to pick up this NVMe drive, something that you're familiar with as a reference, a point of reference. Let's go back over to camera 1 and let me very carefully, without dropping the screw, I'm going to be in a world of hurt if I drop this screw. Can I bring that? Am I on camera 1 or camera 2? That is camera 1. How am I going to do this? It is so teeny tiny. You see it? We've got bugs flying around here way bigger than that. You drop that, it's gone. I mean, it's gone. And I said, what would you do about that? They said, well, we'll give you extra screws. And I'm like, well, but what if you don't know where the box is? This is all just a bunch of support calls. I need the driver. I need the screw. I need to be able to clear the fingerprint. This is what happens when you start locking things down, is you start locking yourself out one way or another. So then the next question is, okay, well, then now that you've got the screw out, and I'll just set it over there, make sure that I don't knock it off the table. Now what do we do? There's no clear indication on how this opens. So this part here that the screw attached into, it now moves a little bit. It's a little bit of motion there, maybe a millimeter, 2 millimeters of motion. And if I go back to the close-up camera here, and where was the screw? The screw was here. So if you take this side of it, see if you can get a fingernail under that and lift it straight up, it opens up. And for me to put this back, I couldn't quite figure out how to put it back either. You see, it's got a couple of notches here, and then there's a hole here and over here. So I thought maybe it went in this way first, the opposite of how I took it out, but no, it appears it has to go in on an angle, like a door. One side or the other. I can't remember which way it was. Yeah, it's got to be this side. And you kind of feel it right there. It like locks into a groove. And then close it like a door and push it, and it locks in. So I guess in theory, you know, if I did lose that little screw, this would still function fine. It's just that I would not be able to secure the drive inside, that somebody could just grab this, pull it open, and take the drive out. Okay, so inside, what we've got here, and I'll just bring this up to the camera to show you, is you've got a little rubber stopper right here for a shorter drive. And that little rubber stopper, you can take that out and you can move it, especially if you have a higher capacity drive that has chips on both sides, then this might interfere. But this is a single-sided NVMe. This is a 2 terabyte Beijing S880 Gen 4. And if the camera will focus. And if we set it in here, which I have to turn it the right way, don't I? We slot it in here like that, and then just push it back. You'll see there's a little clip up there that it just locks into. And yes, it does hit that little rubber foot, but it's still flat. Now, if this were bowed at all, then I would take the little rubber foot out. No. And Mara says we got an email. Thank you, Mara. And then here's a little closer look of the way the cable comes out. You got to get a fingernail or something in there and slide it forward, and then just grab the end and pull. And then that'll just go in exactly the opposite way. Turn it around the other way. All you have on this side is your USB 4 connection, your orange button that I would never ever use this. I would never think of any reason that I would overwrite auto mode. But, you know, people are people and they want control and they think they know better. It doesn't, we're dealing with feelings over facts on this as far as I'm concerned. And to sit there and enable people's feelings to give them features, I guess if you're a company looking to make money, it doesn't matter if what the customer wants makes any sense. If it's profitable, give them what they want. As somebody who supports my customers, I try to save my customers from overbuying or from underbuying, and to get products that aren't going to be constantly calling me for questions about. I would not sell them something because it made them feel good. I would strongly discourage it. I'd say what should make you feel good is knowing you're not going to have any of these problems as a consequence of you needing to feel good. Okay, because that wouldn't make me feel good. Oh, look at that, it just popped open. All right, so a couple of things that I thought were weird about this is in order for that to maintain encryption on the internal drive, you know, sure, you could already use BitLocker or something. You don't need to have some proprietary encryption built into the device. But that's not supported on Apple, is it? So how can you make this encrypted and still make it work with Apple and still make it work with Windows at the same time? Well, that'd be bring your own encryption, and that's what's in the circuit board here. That's encrypting the data, and the way that it does that is it's got to have its own onboard storage. So the onboard storage, right now it's empty, but what it would contain would be things like maybe documentation and things like that. So when I plug this in just like this, like let's do that now. Let's start demonstrating it. So I'm going to turn on, we got our Minisforum PC here, and I've got this one because it's a USB 4, right? So let me turn that on right now and grab the keyboard and mouse for this. And I will demonstrate kind of the weirdness of this. And you can tell me what you think, if you like that weirdness or you don't like it. Personally, I'm not a fan, but that's my opinion. I'm just being honest. I like the folks at Zike. I'm not sure I understand who this is for. And even if I did, how many of those people are out there? This could work for everybody if you have USB 4. Actually, it would work even if you didn't. But the point is, you would see the benefit if you had USB 4, regardless of who you are as a user. This one, on the other hand, this one is a lot more specialized, and it just kind of turns off the public in the sense that it's going to cost a bit more. So that in and of itself, you can tell. One of the things that fascinates me, by the way, is people talk about how they like the best stuff. But when they go shopping and you look at what they bought, most commonly they buy the cheapest thing they could find. And if you go back through the history of our culture, back when the automobile was created, you could have bought a steam engine in the late 1800s. You could have bought an electric car in the late 1800s. They were both expensive. You could have purchased a gasoline-powered car, which would be noisy and smelly and you know, they're very loud. Which one do you think was cheaper? And that's why we drive what we drive today. You know, the gas engine was smellier and louder. It was cheaper. People bought the cheapest thing. If I do like a review of a frozen pizza, and I review all of these fancy frozen pizzas, and then I review the $2 generic, you know, Totino's, the Totino's $2 pizza will get twice as many views as all the other ones. So what people say they want and what people actually buy, in my experience, tends to be very different things. You know, you could have had Beta or VHS in the 80s for videotape. And Beta was superior, but it was more expensive, and so therefore VHS won. It's the same story over and over and over again. So you can buy an NVMe enclosure that's like 10 gigabit compatible for 20, 30 bucks. But when you want to go faster, just like if you want more horsepower, you're going to pay more for it. You're also going to have to pay more for the storage that goes in it because you need faster storage. And then you got to deal with the advanced cooling because faster also means hotter. So whether that's a big heatsink or a spinning tiny little fan that's very buzzy, you got to keep it cool. If the speed doesn't matter so much to you, you don't need to spend this kind of money. And then there's the security aspect, which I've already covered, right? And how effective is that really? So what I wanted to do was show you how this is different and whether or not, I'm curious if you think this is better, if you think this is a feature or if this just makes it more complicated and confusing. So if I take that cable and plug it in here, okay, and let's jump over here. Let me do this. Let me go over to put myself in the corner down here so you can see what I'm doing and see the reaction to it. Uh-oh, I don't have any video. Did it go to sleep on me? What happened here? Did I not turn it on? It says it's on. What am I missing? Is my HDMI cable not plugged all the way in? Oh, there it is. Okay. So there's our desktop for this little guy right here, right? This is the guy that we're plugged into that's streaming the video to you. And this is our demonstration computer that we're going to plug this drive into. So one of the first things I want to bring to your attention is that we only have a C drive, right? You see the C drive. Now we're going to take this with no drive installed. We're going to plug that in. Where's my, oh, it's over here. There's my USB-C or USB 4 Type C. And you'll see that on this side we have a lock screen. Again, it's just a display. It might as well just be a fancy light. This is our fan. And this is our fingerprint sensor and single button on the unit, apart from the orange button that controls the fan. And then you'll see we get the display powering up and the RGB around the fan comes on. And I'll give you close-ups of that here in a minute. But now we have USB drive D. It doesn't say Zike. It doesn't identify what it is or why it's there. This is also, again, a prototype. So bear that in mind. But nonetheless, this drive is there without any explanation. And I think it's in read-only mode, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think I tried writing anything to it, but it appears to be empty. And so they're saying, well, you know, they've got to have firmware on there to do the encryption and decryption, regardless if it's Windows or Mac, based on the fingerprint, blah, blah, blah. So, all right, so let me unplug this. Now you'll notice when I unplug it, the screen immediately turns off. Now that $20 or $30 enclosure that may have something called PLP, or power loss protection. What that'll do when you unplug it like I just did, power loss protection keeps your NVMe drive from getting corrupted from a power shock, because it has these capacitors that will, once it senses you've lost power for any reason, the display will stay on and you'll see a bar that's draining down that says it's gently easing power from the NVMe drive. And then it moves pretty quick. And I've demonstrated it with the enclosure from Feijing. This is a let's call it $25 enclosure, $30 enclosure. That's only 10 gigs per second. It's much slower. And it's about the same size. Also has a screen, and that screen is touchscreen. This one is not. And that has power loss protection. This one does not have power loss protection. So if you cut power unexpectedly, you could corrupt or even damage your NVMe drive, which doesn't sound, with all the fingerprint and security, that doesn't sound too secure to me. We did mention this to the folks at Zike, and they are bringing it to the attention of their engineers, and they'll have internal meetings to decide what, if anything, they want to do about that. But I think when you spend this kind of money, you need power loss protection. That shouldn't even be something to discuss. And without it, you're just running a risk every time you unplug it if you don't safely eject it first. Okay, so now let's just do the same thing, but we're going to put the NVMe drive in here. Now this is a brand new NVMe drive. It's cleaned up. So in the sense, there's no partition, no formatting. We lock it in, no tools required. That's really easy, fits well, no problems. And then what I'll do is I'll put this cover back on it just so we get the airflow. And I don't know which way this goes on. I guess where there's a little loop right here where the screw goes in. So it must go on this side where the screw hole is. And again, we're just going to put in one side first. I think it's that side. And then just, it locks down. And then I'm going to leave the screw out of it because I don't want to keep, I will lose that. I promise you I'm going to lose it. So let's plug it back in now and see what it looks like any differently. So I plug this in and give that a second to initialize. We'll go back over to this PC. And again, we've got USB drive D. So where is the NVMe drive? Well, because it's brand new, it hasn't been partitioned or formatted, Windows doesn't know what it is. So what we'd have to do is, like any new drive on Windows, we have to initialize it. Even if it were internal and attached to the motherboard, we'd still have to do this. So we'll come down here and type in disk management, create and format hard disk partitions. And you're like, well, where is it? There's disk 0 and there's disk 1. Well, don't forget, there's a little bar here, right? And sometimes if you scroll down, you'll find another drive that you weren't seeing, or you can just drag the window down a little bit. Okay, so we definitely only see the two drives right now. And so how are we going to see this new NVMe drive? I think, so again, this isn't very intuitive. We have to unlock this. But without any fingerprints attached, how do we unlock it? I think any fingerprint will unlock it. So let me just touch the sensor. And yeah, that unlocked it without registering a fingerprint. And now we see a 2 terabyte unallocated drive. Now we can right click on that and let's see, property. Oh, I think we just need to format it. Is that all we have to do? Right click and format? No. Let me try again. Let me right click and go to disk management. It should just pop up automatically. There it is. There's disk 2. You must initialize the disk for Windows. Okay, so let's do that. And again, where is it? You got to remember, there's more listed here potentially. You got to see the bottom. Don't just think it's not there. Now it says it's unallocated, so that means we need to format it. So we'll say a new simple volume, next, 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 finish. Now it's ready to be used. So if we go back to this PC, which used to just have a C drive, now we have the D drive that's only 2 megs in size, right? And we have our new volume of 2 terabytes that we can now start reading and writing data to. Now, how fast does it read and write data? Well, it's USB 4. That means the fastest that USB 4 can go would be 4,000 megabytes a second. This is a Gen 4 drive that can read and write at 7,200 and over 6,000 megabytes a second. So the drive absolutely is being bottlenecked by the enclosure. So whatever the enclosure can do is what we should see in this test. So here we'll select the E drive. And that's still, you know, I tested this last night. That's why it's defaulting. And I'll hit the all, and we'll see what kind of transfer speeds we're getting on this. And yes, I hear that little fan right now. Because this cable's so short, it's sitting at the table at an angle. It's a little bit of a vibration coming from it. It's what I would describe as a high-pitched buzz. So they advertise getting 3,800 on the reads, and that's pretty much exactly what it gets. Where's the other, you know, 187 megabytes at? That's your overhead error correction communication protocols that USB needs. It's not just raw data transfer without communication of, I'm going to send you some data and I'm going to send it in pieces, and then you need to acknowledge you're getting those pieces with CRC checking that the pieces are coming across accurately. And all of that communication about involving sending the data would make up for that 187 megs, and you're just not going to get it. Otherwise, you could be transferring corrupted data. So it's really important that those communication protocols are there, and it does come at a cost of some resources. But that's every drive does that, internal or external. And then we'll see what we get on the writes here. So they're saying 3,600 on the writes, or I can't remember what they said. I don't think you're going to see that big of a performance boost, but maybe. Let's see. Here we go. It's pausing for a second, and then it's going to begin the write test. This is our sequential write. This shows us the best the drive could ever perform under perfect circumstances, moving large files on a proper USB 4 port, about 3,200. That sounds more reasonable than 3,600, but I think they said 3,600, and I mean, this drive is clearly capable of writing at 6,000, so it's not the drive's fault, but maybe we have to turn write caching on or something to get that little tiny extra bit, which ultimately isn't going to make a whole lot of difference in time of transfers. Basically, if I'm moving 100 gigs of data across USB 4 at 3,200 megabytes a second or 3,800, the amount of time it'll take to complete the job between those two speeds is maybe 40 seconds difference. So I don't know. It depends how tolerant and patient you are, or lack thereof. Andy said his original Zike this morning did 3801 read and 3752 on the writes. Yeah, so what they're claiming here is that they're only slightly faster than the previous model, but they're still faster. With the writes, it may be a write caching thing I've got to turn on. I'm not sure. And they're also claiming more compatibility with other USB controllers. I guess there must have been some issues with some computers' USB controllers with the original Zike. No, I didn't experience that. Apparently you haven't experienced that. But this resolves it for those people who I guess experience that. It's less likely going to have any compatibility concerns, but we didn't have any to begin with. So, you know, if you don't hone that kind of hardware, that's an improvement that doesn't matter to you, right? Like it doesn't matter to me. And the speed difference is very minimal. But unlike the drive that came before this, and by the way, this thing's wobbling. And the reason it's wobbling here on the table is because the cable's so short, there's no way to set it down. and the fan is spinning, which is creating centrifugal force, and this thing is constantly just moving up and down. Not as much as I'm exaggerating it here on the table, but it is on its own doing this, which this drive would not do that because it doesn't have anything moving inside of it. So it's acting like a gyroscope, a bit of a centrifugal force effect from that fan spinning. Does that matter? I don't know, but it's just a difference I'm pointing out. I don't know. This is a very difficult thing for me because this is such a good drive and it's cheaper and it's not that much bigger. Sure, it's heavier, but it's not. Are we becoming that weak in society that, oh, this thing weighs 8 ounces and this one weighs 4 ounces? I can't hold that 8-ounce one for 2. Seriously? Okay. All right. Well, again, we're dealing with feelings, not necessarily with facts, unless somebody has something wrong, in which case we should be talking about ADA compliance for people that perhaps have limited mobility or strength. But then again, then you're whittling down. Who are you making the product for? Just a few people that are affected by that? You're allowed to, but why? Wouldn't you want to sell to the masses? Okay, so here's the original, just for a size comparison. Here's the original, and here's the latest model. So we're looking at a difference in size. Let me see if I can go full screen back here on camera 1. Actually, I should probably just go to camera 2. Let's try camera 2. So there is a significant size difference there, in the sense if you consider 1 inch significant. And this would still fit in my pocket. This will fit in my pocket easier. And of course, the thickness, if you look at how thick the drives are, they're more or less the same. It's just this one has this plastic cover around it, which, you know, and this one, the drive slides out with a little notch. It's a little easier to get out. And it's about 1 inch long. This one's about 1 inch longer than the enclosed one here. So this is a bigger cable, easier to get out. This unit is cheaper. This unit has no fan. There's no way you're going to lock yourself out with a fingerprint reader. There's no screen to just convey information that you really don't need anyway, in my opinion. You don't need to know what your temperatures are. That's a weird internet thing that most people I've ever met in real life never are asking me about temperatures. I don't get support calls for that. Once in a while, someone may say, hey, my computer feels really hot or something, but it's very, very uncommon. But I can't click the mouse without running into some person online obsessed about how hot their drive is running. And most consumers, they don't care. Like, unless they're having a problem, it's supposed to get warm. Why would I monitor how warm it's getting? You know, some cars have a temperature gauge that just says hot on one side, cold on the other, and your needle should be somewhere in the middle. But other cars will give you a precise digital readout of how hot your temperature of your engine is. How many people put that on their display of their dashboard when there's other more important information, like how much gas do I have left, and what RPMs am I using, and what's my average mileage, and what's the air pressure in my tires? All of that's more important unless something's not working in the car and you're trying to figure out, you know, why did my air conditioning all of a sudden blow warm? Well, maybe because your engine's overheating, right? So usually if something like that happens, a separate light or alarm will appear on your dashboard, whether you're paying attention or not to your temperatures. You don't have to monitor them like a hawk. You'll be alerted, hey, something's wrong. The same if you run out of oil. You're going to get a warning on your dashboard. If your drive was running hot, you'd know. You wouldn't have to just sit there and watch it all the time, trying to prevent it from getting hot when it was never getting hot to begin with, and yet feel obsessed to control it and push the orange button and put it into turbo so the fan spins at 10,000 RPM. And you can really feel the air coming out of here. And I don't know how well you can hear. I don't know that you'll even be able to hear it, quite frankly, because I've got the filters on. But if I put this microphone right up here. That's turbo. Now let me push the orange button back to auto, and it'll run as fast as it needs to run based. We'll let the computer monitor the temp so you don't have to. Unrealistic for me to put the microphone that close, but I don't know what that sounded like, but it's definitely louder at 10,000 RPM, and it's definitely high pitched because it's a small fan, and that's anytime you get to a small fan, the blades have to spin faster in order to move a decent amount of air, right, to make any difference. A bigger fan would run slower and quieter, but if you're going to have it in a package this big. And by the way, this is vibrating in my hand. It's buzzing. The buzz isn't the buzz of the motor. It's the buzz of the air and the vibration of the metal casing. And that vibration is what I'm calling a buzz. This is passively cooled. There's no fan, there's no buzz, there's no vibration. And that's why it's so big and heavy, because the case acts as a heatsink, so you don't need a fan. Therefore, this will last a lifetime in theory. This will last until the fan dies. And if you're out of warranty, I think you're just going to have to buy a new enclosure, because I don't think you're going to find a spare fan on the market. So these are some of my concerns, but I'm curious in the chat room what you think about these two devices, knowing this one's, you're not going to get it for 6 months. You got to be a backer and you got to pay more for it. This one you can order on Amazon right now and have it within a couple days and start using it right away. And do you think that the Fingerprint is a benefit or a downside? Do you think the fan with the smaller size and lighter weight is a benefit or a downside? Do you think the screen providing information that, you can't change anything on the screen? It's not touch screen. There's one screen, and the information it contains, who cares? Like, if I want to see this doesn't show me data transfer speed. I still have to look at the computer. I can see the temp reported on this, but what do I care what the temp is? Who cares? Unless I'm having a problem, what do I need to see that for? Isn't the whole idea with the fan being I shouldn't have to worry about that? Anyway, those are my concerns. I think it's made well, and I think they're a good company. But I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around who is this for that's willing to pay more than what they could already have right now instead of 6 months from now for virtually the same speed. Because all these features to me, like the Apple Find My features, they're completely of no value to me. I don't own an Apple computer, so maybe they're focusing this on Apple users. Now, you could plug this into your phone. You could use it to back up your phone. You could plug this into your iPad. You could plug it into your laptop. It's very portable. However, there's no USB-C adapter or cable, USB type A to C. So basically, if you're a technician like me working on clients' computers, I couldn't use this as a source for my utilities or to back up client data. Let's say, for example, client says to me, they got a problem, and the way I'm going to solve the problem is we're going to wipe your computer and reinstall it. But as a courtesy, as part of what I do for a living, I'm going to take all the data off your computer and put it onto one of my portable drives. Then I'll wipe it out and put your data back on for you. And customers pay me for this. I could not bring this drive because most customers don't have a USB Type-C. So this I couldn't use for that, except for very specific customers that have the latest hardware. And if they have the latest hardware, they probably don't need that done yet. Give it a couple years. So without the adapter, I wouldn't bring this for customers because it would only work for a very small percentage of customers, or I'd have to provide my own adapter. And it doesn't matter how fast this is if the USB port the customer has is just a 10 gig per second USB port. So in that case, I'm better off buying just that $20 or $30 enclosure that I mentioned before, that you put your own drive in it and it's USB Type-C or Type-A. It's going to move it at 10 gigs per second regardless. And it's just going to work on every computer, Apple, Windows, anything. But if you want that high speed, if you want the 40 gigabit per second, you're now just going to be on USB-C. And you're going to pay extra for it, and you're going to have to put a higher end, faster NVMe drive in it, which is also going to get hotter. Okay, so these are all the downsides from my perspective in the line of work that I do. Can you, any of you, tell me the upsides? Genuinely, what are they? And where would you use it in real world? A real world example, paint a picture for me so I can understand. Not just a generic, maybe your portable moving critical data. Okay, like how? Like what would be your job? What would you be doing? And why would that be so critical that you would be portable and still require it? Paint me the entire picture of how that would be used in the real world. Because I can't come up with anything. Like I got nothing. David Graham says you should write something on the NVMe drive and then put it in another enclosure and see if you can read it. Well, right now, I don't believe it's being encrypted because we haven't registered a fingerprint. Right? If any fingerprint right now unlocks this, David, then any fingerprint is going to read it. So if it's being encrypted either way, that would be kind of weird to encrypt it when there's no registered fingerprint. But yeah, I mean, if you're curious about that, I believe right now the drive is not encrypted because no fingerprint's been registered, but let's find out. Let's take, it's a fair test. Let's close this out, our results here. And what can we move over? Let's take something like, we'll go in our downloads here. We have like those Windows ISOs. So let's grab this one at 6 gigs. Let's copy this and let's put it on the drive in there right now without a registered fingerprint just to see if it encrypts it. I don't think it does. I also want to remind you, this is a prototype. So what I'm showing you may not be the way the final product works. This is not the end-all be-all to how this works. This is not fully functional with all the features. They're still working on it, just as a disclaimer, so we're all on the same page. Now, in theory, I should be able to just move it to this enclosure because this one doesn't support any encryption. If I can remember how to open this. I think this one was completely toolless. I think you just pull it open. Oh yeah, muscle memory, man. All right, and we should be able to use the same cable and everything. So what I'm going to do is what you shouldn't do, which is just pull the power on this. And when I pull this from the USB port, watch this. If we go over here to, whoopsie, over here to this PC. And again, you see the D drive and the E drive, right? And this worries me. If I click on that E drive, you see that's our Windows ISO image, right? Check this out. I'm just going to yank the USB cable out. Without power loss protection, I could damage this NVMe drive in here. I could corrupt the data. I could permanently damage it. But look, drive E is still there. And if I click on it, it's not there anymore, folks. Why is it still? Oh, finally Windows went, oh, that's not plugged in anymore. That's a little weird, isn't it? I think that's pretty strange. You'd think that would be practically instantaneous, but maybe that's the USB controller. I don't know that that has anything to do with the drive. But I would normally have like an on-off switch on the device itself to turn it off. Then let me unplug it. So when I hit the on-off switch on other enclosures that have on-off push buttons, then it would disconnect. You'd hear the USB go doo-doo. Then you could pull it. Otherwise, you've got to use safely eject, or if you just did what I did, as I've said 3 times, you could damage the NVMe or corrupt the data. So with that being said, let's open this up and take the drive out, which is from this side here. about the drive. Just set that there for now. We'll put the drive in here this time. I don't like the latch system. It's like a little rubber peg you're supposed to rotate, whereas that's like a plastic post that leans forward, and when you push the drive in, you're pushing it back and it springs forward automatically. This one requires little teeny tiny fingers, and you could lose that little rubber stopper. This one also has the rubber stopper for the smaller drives. And again, that's one of those little pieces you could lose, and that's an original potential issue since the original design. Now this cover goes on a little differently. It's got little hooks in the back. They hook on like a hinge, and then you close it. And then just to save it, just to be lazy, I'm going to just keep using the same little cable. And we'll just plug it in here, and we'll plug it in over here. And go over to this PC. Hopefully we'll see a D drive. Interestingly enough, it's kind of holding onto that D drive that's built into the other enclosure, and it's not giving it back. But we do see only one additional drive, which is what you would expect. I wouldn't expect to see two drives. I only expect to see one. That's where this one kind of throws me. Now, without a fingerprint registered, but still using the device, is the data encrypted on the drive? Let's take a look and see if we can read it. Yeah, it reads fine. It's not encrypted. Okay, so with that question answered, and again, this one also has no on-off switch, right? So we run into the same issue where if I just pull the plug on this, let's see. Let's pull the USB. Does the drive instantly go away? Can I still click? Oh, it was much faster. Do you see the difference there? I couldn't even get the mouse over there to click on the drive to see. Whereas before, well, you saw. Why? I don't know. Doesn't seem right to me, but I'm not an engineer in that level. So let's go ahead and take this drive back out. Now, one reason this is a lot easier to get in and out of is because it's bigger. The smaller you start making things, the harder it is for people that don't have great dexterity or small fingers to be able to open and manipulate them. So the larger, chunkier it is, I mean, you could probably drop this on your floor and it's going to be just fine. Your floor may not be okay. It's kind of heavy. If you have a wooden floor, it could leave a little dent in the wood. All right, and that's quality. That's old school quality. This one, on the other hand, much lighter, probably wouldn't hurt anything, but you do have a worry about the fan. If you knock it out of balance, something like that, it gets loud. So with that being said, let's put it back in and let's register a fingerprint. I always try to put this on backwards. It does, when you put it in the right way, it goes in pretty easy. But there's no like dots to a line or anything that indicates which way this goes on. Again, it's a prototype, so that may change, it may not. This is what we got to show you today because that's what they've got available. This is as far as the project has come, as far as I know, so that they can start their Kickstarter and start getting some more funding to continue further development before they run out of money. I guess that's the idea. So let me go back full screen for just a moment on camera one. Come on, camera one, where are you? There you are. And this is going to be a little difficult for me to show you, but what we want to do is plug this in. It says Zike. Again, I don't know how well you're going to be able to read that. And then it shows a fingerprint with a red lock. So all you got to do is touch the sensor and it unlocks it. That little green check shows it's open, and then the screen fires up and the RGB around the fan comes on. And then we'll see the drive now on our computer over here. It should appear right there. There's our little 2 megabyte internal drive in the enclosure. That really does need to say Zike or stay out for business use, for maintenance use, something. And then here comes the internal drive. So it does take a little longer to initialize than last year's model in its current prototype state. Okay. Now, we want to register a fingerprint. How are we going to do that? What we need to do is hold this button down. What do we do? I think you push the button in. This is going to be so hard for me to show you. Let me just use my thumb here, and we'll push it in. Now, do you hear the beeping? That's for the Apple stuff. That doesn't do anything for us PC users. I think I just hold this in. And then it shows, you register the fingerprint. Now, here it's showing a picture of a fingerprint, and then there's little dots underneath. And every time I press down, just like registering a fingerprint on a phone, once it accepts it, one of the dots lights up. And until you do this, where it's got 8 different positions of your, in this case, my thumbprint, then you get a green checkbox that never goes away. Well, I guess it'll time out and take you back to the screen. And then if we do this again, if we hold our thumb on, just without pressing, because this is a button, I'm not pushing the button in yet. I'm just resting my thumb on top of it, waiting a few seconds for the screen to change the display. And this says, I don't know what that said. Sorry, I have to face it towards me for a minute here because I'm getting an unexpected result. So it said I was the administrator. The very first fingerprint that you register is the administrator. And you can register 21 more fingerprints. But to delete fingerprints or add fingerprints, you must be an administrator first. Then you can give access to the drive to other people, but they won't have the ability to add more fingerprints or take away any fingerprints. Only administrators can do that. Again, I'm not sure where this is a use case scenario. I understand where you might want to use 5 of those 22 for your own hand, for your own fingers. In case you cut a finger, you get a scar or a Band-Aid, you want to still be able to access this. There's no password override on this. It's fingerprint or no access, period. So, okay. Now, in theory, is the drive encrypted? Because I don't see it encrypting anything. So now here's my question. If we go back over to this computer, and we go back over to the drive, I would think you'd have to reformat the drive, but nothing is telling us the drive is encrypted. I don't see any indication this drive is encrypted. So since we wrote this unencrypted, I'm going to assume it stays unencrypted. I don't know. Let me delete what was on there, and let's copy something else to it. Let's copy this 8 gig version so we know that we're not bringing back the same file. Now let's move that over to drive E and paste. And you'll see it's moving the data pretty quickly, right? That's 8 gigs moved in under 20 seconds, right around 15 seconds. If that's something that's important to you and you're willing to pay extra so you don't have to wait 40 seconds, hey, how you value your time is on you, what it's worth to you. Now, is that now encrypted? I don't think it is, but I don't know. So here's what I'm going to do. Since we've now got a registered fingerprint, let's go back to camera 1. And I'm just going to pull this out of here, which you shouldn't do. And we're going to take the drive out, which is the way I have to remember how to take the drive out without any arrows or indications of which side's what. I'm looking for the hole the screw went in, which is the opposite side of where the turbo button is for the fan and the cable. All that's on this side would be your ventilation, where the air's coming out, and the screw, and that's where it kind of slides back a little bit. You get a fingernail under there and lift it up. And then we'll pull back that little plastic post. The drive pops up. And let's put it back in here and see if we can read the drive. Now, it's possible that this is how it's supposed to work and it's not been implemented because this is still a prototype. So what I'm about to show you, I don't know if that's what the final product is going to work like or not. All right, things are subject to change, and this is sort of the condition of being able to get an early hands-on look, is what we're looking at as its current state, not its final state. So there's a pro and a con to that. On the one hand, we're getting some really unique content before everybody else. On the other hand, it may not be what actually ships. It should mostly be the same, mostly, but there could be some differences in the final product and the way that the software works. So we'll have to just wait and see. But with that, let's go ahead and plug this back in now, because what good is the fingerprint if all you have to do is open it up and take the drive out? Then it's security theater, right? So let's find out. At least in the current state of the prototype, is the drive accessible? Let's go back over to this machine and see. All still there. So yeah, I double click on this, it mounts it, there's all the files. There's no security there. My understanding is it's supposed to encrypt, but if it were encrypting, wouldn't it run slower, right? Wouldn't it have to process the data, especially on this big file that's 8 gigs? Wouldn't it have to take longer to write it as it encrypts it and writes it? It would slow down. So therefore, what's the point of USB 4? If you're just slowing down your data, every time you have to write, it has to encrypt, and every time you have to read, it has to decrypt, and it has to do that from its own onboard circuits. That's not exactly a high-end processor on this thing. So if it were, it'd cost a lot of money, it'd get even hotter. So there you go. As far as encryption goes, it appears all the fingerprint is doing is giving you access to the drive in the enclosure. But the minute you take the drive out of the enclosure, you don't need the encryption, or the fingerprint rather, anymore to unlock it. Right now, because we registered the fingerprint, we will not, if we move the drive back in here and we plug this in, that drive will not appear. And if I use any finger other than the one I registered, it's never going to appear. Once I use the registered finger, then the drive appears. So is that real security, and is this how it's going to ship? Because it says it's encrypted, but we're not seeing any encryption. Nor are we seeing the effects of encryption, which would be a slowdown of the read and write speeds. And it would be a significant slowdown on a big file or on a ton of little files. It would take a while, just like when you compress a zip file. It takes a while to compress it. It takes a few seconds or minutes to uncompress, depending on how big it is, right? That's processing resources. And you're using the processor and resources of the device rather than use processing resources of the computer, such as BitLocker or other encryption software, which then might make it not compatible with the Apple platform. So, you know, you're kind of at a loss one way or the other. You're making a pretty significant sacrifice, regardless of how you look at it, unless you simply don't do that. Or password protect your files before you copy them over. Make your own zip file with a password on it. And then that is your encryption. This whole fingerprint thing, I'm just having a hard time wrapping my mind around how it makes any sense. But again, if you guys have ideas, please tell me. Let me take a look on the in the chat room and see what you're saying. Frank Jimmy said, would there be a padlock on the drive icon if it were encrypted? Well, you won't get the drive icon. That's what I'm trying to tell you. The drive icon will not appear in this device once you've registered a finger. You have to then touch the button, rest your registered finger on it for the drive to appear. So the drive would not be in a locked state because you just unlocked it. If you didn't unlock it, the drive will not be an option, it will not appear. So the controller is not releasing access to the drive until you release the enclosure with your fingerprint. But it's also supposed to encrypt the data, which I'm not seeing now. But again, this is a prototype. And we didn't get any documentation. So, and I'm not seeing any slowness of the drive. If it were encrypting, it should slow down How those reads and writes that I showed you on the crystal disk mark, that's without encryption. That's what this thing pretty much gets the same speeds. It has no encryption on it. This one supposedly does, and if that were true, we should see the performance hit for the encryption taking place and the decryption taking place when we read it back, based on the limited processing ability of the controller on here that could do that, versus the massive CPU we've got in this beast that's, you know, 100 times, maybe more powerful than that. I'm a little confused, again, who this is for and why somebody would want it when you already have this cheaper available right away, without the fan, without the fingerprint, without the screen that doesn't really provide anything useful in my opinion. So again, what am I missing? I like Zike. This is not meant to, like, you know, insult them at all. I'm just having a hard time. When your engineer sat down to design this, who were they thinking would want it? And I mean specifically, give me a job that you can explain how that process works. Well, this person would go out to film, and they'd take the video that they filmed and they'd move it to their external drive to free up space on the camera. Okay, that's like any other external drive. Why would they need to encrypt it? You know, give me some real world examples of why they need to encrypt that, and then potentially affect the what's supposed to be fastest drive, only to artificially slow it down with encryption. Why would you do that? Pick one. Do you want the encryption or do you want the speed? I don't get it. I understand you could make a product somebody will buy. Okay? Maybe you make a 6-fingered glove, and you're going to design these gloves for people who have 6 fingers on one hand. You know what? I'm sure those people exist, but how many gloves do you think you're going to sell? And then you're going to charge extra for the glove, right? And that's where we start getting into what I call, you know, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, because the minute you start making medical devices, you can raise the price 15 times. I'm not saying it's right, but that's the standard. Do you have any idea how much a chair with wheels on it, called a wheelchair, costs versus any other kind of chair? Can you explain that to me? It's just the way the industry is. All right, that's just how it works. Wheelchairs are profoundly expensive. And I think there's just a lot of insurance and liabilities that they have to cover for injuries and stuff like that, that a regular chair wouldn't have to deal with. So the way that the industry is built upon liabilities and also, you know, if you need a wheelchair, what choice do you have? You're going to have to get one. What are you going to do? Go without? So when they've got you in a position where they don't need you, but you need them, they can also get away with charging more because you don't have any choice but to pay it. And if you've got insurance, it's not really costing you, it's costing the insurance company to pay for your wheelchair. So who cares if it's $10,000? That's why I say it's an industry-specific problem. But if you're making, you know, a device for people with disabilities, you're going to sell far fewer. Most people don't have physical disabilities. So for those who do, that have a physical disability that aligns with your product, you're going to sell far fewer products overall, but you're going to charge a lot more for each one. And you say, okay, that's who your audience is. It's this little tiny portion, and we're going to make it up by selling the units individually for more money, and that's pretty much how that whole industry works. But this is not that. So why would you pay more for that than this, just to ultimately get the same speed, to have to deal with that little tiny screw versus no tools at all, simply because of the size? I don't know. You tell me. What am I missing? I want to like this. I want to tell you, hey, this is an exciting Kickstarter. But is it? It's just, I don't know. Zike is very, very excited about announcing this product, and I'm scratching my head going, this is sort of a refresh of what this is. That's all it is. And I'm not sure that the refresh is worth more money and really offers anything of importance. But that's where I'm stuck. See, I don't know if that's me. Is there a portion of the world I'm unaware of that would pay extra for this? And who are they? That's all I want to know. There's a big gap between what Zike is making and what I do for a living and the customers that I work with on a daily basis. I don't have a single customer, nor have I ever, that would be a recommended product that I would say, oh, you should buy this to solve this problem. Maybe this one, maybe, and even that would be pretty extreme. Dennis says, we used external drives sometimes in LAN parties. Yeah, but would you need it encrypted and fingerprinted? You know what I mean? Like, we're not talking about external drives. We're talking about external NVMe enclosures, their pricing, their performance, their size and weight, and what differentiates one NVMe enclosure that sells for $30 from an NVMe enclosure that sells for $140, let's say, that if you order it today at that discounted price, you're not going to get it for 6 months. There must be something that this is doing differently that makes it worth waiting 6 months for and paying more than what you can get today. So if it's the fingerprint reader and if it's the encryption, if it's the lightweight and the fact that it's actively cooled being passively cooled, are any of you those people that would want that? And if so, why would you pick that over this one? Why would you pick one that costs more money that you can't get for 6 months versus what you could have today for less money that basically operates at the same speed? Anybody here? I'm not setting you up. I'm genuinely, sincerely, and honestly asking this question in earnest. Like, what part of the information am I not considering? David Graham said, it's not secure, it's a pain to use, and it's useless. That's a bit harsh, David. Again, it's a prototype. I want to keep reminding you, this is not a finished product. So what we're seeing here today, there's a reason why it's not shipping until 6 months from now. There's a lot of work to be done. But this at least puts something in our hands much earlier than anybody. You can't get this. You can't order this. I mean, you can order it, but you can't have it sitting on your desk. We're very fortunate to be given the opportunity, but we do need to keep in mind that the consequence is that it's not finished. So under those conditions, is it even worth looking at this stage? Because we don't know how much will change. All we know is that's a prototype. If that was ready to ship, there wouldn't be 6 months wait. So that tells you they've got work to do. Andy says, I would not trade my original. So he's got the original Zike for the new Zike. I agree. I honestly wouldn't either. But I don't think this is I'm not the target audience for this. I think the target audience for this is an Apple user. That's what I think. Dennis says, is it also an infiltration point to take a virus to work? Well, anytime you plug in a data source to a work computer that did not come from work and was not authorized by work, that's a problem between you and your work. That's a problem. That's not a law problem. That's an employer policy issue, that the employer should have policies that they enforce. That's not the responsibility of the drive manufacturer or the computer manufacturer or the OS manufacturer. That is solely the employer's responsibility. Dennis said, I have a hard time remembering when I last used an external drive. Oh, I use external drives all the time. But again, in my line of work, when I'm going to clients and backing up data and things like that, a flash drive isn't going to cut it for me. I need a bigger storage capacity, and I need it quick so I can get in and out of there, charging the client by the hour, right? So that's my unique use case in running a repair business. You as a home user, you have your own unique use case for your preferences. My preferences are to try and make money and help customers. So whatever assists me in being able to do that more efficiently and more reliably, it's worth it to me to buy those tools. It's not just because I want to. It's because I have to. I need to, work smarter and not harder. But, to each their own on that. Corey Man said it is supposed to hardware encrypt. That is my understanding, but it's clearly not doing that. And without any documentation, if there's any steps we need to take, like maybe register the fingerprint and then format the drive, maybe that's what encrypts. I don't know, but when I played with it last night, I never saw any performance difference, and we should see a degradation of read and write performance if it is constantly encrypting and decrypting, which would mean that's a slower drive than this one, right? Inevitably, if you're going to encrypt everything you're writing and decrypt everything you've written to read it back from the same device, this doesn't have much in the way of onboard RAM or anything, so that's only going to go slower. And I've not noticed any degradation of speed, so I don't think the encryption on the prototype is working. All it seems to be doing is just letting me into the drive. That's it. But that's not as I understand the description, that's not how it's supposed to work. But then what is the encryption? They don't seem to be specific. Is it AES 256? Just telling me it's encrypted. Encrypted with what? They don't seem clear on that either at this stage. Or I'm not seeing it. If you're seeing it, please tell me what it says. But what I see is I see people locking themselves out of their own drive for all the various reasons I've given you that are not a thing with this one. And this one's cheaper and available now. Basically runs the same speed. So Frankie says he likes the Sabrent and the Silverstone enclosures. Oh, listen, there's no shortage of NVMe enclosures on the market. But when you're looking at USB 4 enclosures specifically, well, maybe Sabrent and Silverstone make one. I don't think we've reviewed one. Oh yeah, we have. Yeah, we did. In fact, I'm looking right at one. Here's the MS1240G from Silverstone. I just happen to have it here. Now this one, you've got to take 4 screws out from the top and open it up, so it's a much more permanent enclosure. It's got an LED to let you know when it's reading and writing. Here's your USB-C cable, a lot longer of a cable, although there will be a longer cable in the box. And then your vents here. And I don't know if this is actively cooled or passively cooled. I can't remember. But this is one of the earlier enclosures. We also have, I have one from Orico here as well. And the Orico enclosure is less money, has a fan, and I didn't have any of the compatibility issues with the cable that I did with this one. Remember when I was reviewing this one? The video is there if you want to just type in my channel, Zike, with the word CareyHolzman, or just look in my videos. That video is there, it's public, it's not members only, and you can go and pull that video review up and watch. So it was just weird that when we went with the Orico cable on the Zike drive, just on the minis forum, no other computer did we have this problem with, the Zike drive worked fine. And I never did get an answer. Nor do I care, because I don't really use that minis forum anymore. I now use this one. So I don't know what that was all about. I still don't. And it's the only issue I've ever had with the Zike drive or the minis forum. Just those two together with, and all I did was switch the cable. Remember, the Zike drive comes with 2 cables. It comes with this one here, and it comes with one in the box. Neither cable worked with that minis forum, but the Orico cable, the competitor's cable, when used on the Zike drive in the minis forum, worked fine. So what does that mean? Cable related. Now, I wonder with this new cable, if we were to pull that same minis forum out that we had the problem with, does that problem go away with this cable, more similar to Orico's? I don't care anymore. Like, that ship sailed. And it was the only computer that I've ever experienced that on. And I didn't find anybody else online having the issue. What are the odds they have that drive in that computer? Yeah, it's pretty whittled down to probably just me. So I'm not gonna make a big deal out of it. Not saving the universe just because I have a combination of two parts that likely nobody else has. I just want to scroll through comments here because I'm sure I've missed a lot. So again, the reason why I keep going back to it's going to be a lot of support calls. Let's say the controller on this fails. If this was encrypting the data on the internal drive, how are you ever going to get your data back since it's not using any software? You could send this to a data recovery company. They will not be able to get your data back. It'll just be gibberish. If it's all truly encrypted, the only thing that can unencrypt it would be this exact device. Would you be able to buy another one of these, or if it were under warranty, get a replacement, move the drive in, and then get your data back? But what if you need the data right now, and you're not going to get a replacement for 10 days? You got to, create an RMA, send this back, wait for another one, or do you just go on Amazon and buy another one because you need the data and you've now locked yourself out because you foolishly encrypted it because you wanted to keep it out of the hands of people, and then the controller dies? Or you lost your cable and you have no way to hook this up. So you think, well, I'll just take the drive out. I really need that data right now. I got to help a client, a customer. I got to get this done. What are you going to tell your customer? I'm sorry, I locked your data away and I can't find the key. I just think they're going to get a lot of support calls never ending on this product because you shouldn't put that into the hands of users. That should go into specialist hands only. And if you want to make a specialist device, good luck selling any because you're going to have very limited sales. So I don't know how the economics of this make any sense, but it's not that it's bad. It's built well. It seems to perform well. But then so does this, and we already have this. This has already been available for the last 18 months. So who's this for? It's not like it's USB V2 and it runs at 80 gigabits per second. Oh, okay. That'd be something. Doesn't do that. No on-off switch. Why? Why is there no push button to activate it? You've got a button to access it, right? A fingerprint, but you don't have a button to turn it on and off so you can safely remove it. And it has no power loss protection. When the $20 or $30 enclosure from Beijing has power loss protection. You put a 16 terabyte drive in here and you're going to drop how many thousands of dollars for that and then have no power loss protection? That doesn't really make any sense to me. But, and again, this is a prototype. Maybe they'll add power loss protection. I don't know. If I had a physical off button I could press and let the drive power off, and then I heard USB disconnect, then I could unplug it and I wouldn't really worry about power loss protection because that wouldn't be an unexpected power loss. That's me. Power loss protection implies you've unexpectedly lost power. As long as you're following the rules and you're doing everything according to the way you're supposed to, then power loss protection is not needed unless you suddenly lost power or accidentally knocked the cable loose or something while you were in the middle of using it. That's where the damage occurs. And when we're dealing with humans, you're going to get support calls. That's all I got to say. I never did check the email, did I? My apologies, I kind of got lost there. In my thoughts, I was lost in my thoughts. Charlie Purdy sends an Amazon gift card. Thank you so much, Charlie. I really appreciate your generosity and your continued support. We've got one more mini PC that we're waiting to get from Amazon. And so starting Friday, we'll start reviewing these new mini PCs that we've been able to purchase thanks to your support. So these companies are not working with us. Zike is working with us, but I mean, the mini PCs that I've got coming up, GMK Tech, Good Tico, who else? AOO Star. They don't talk to us. So we just bought it like you would. We paid the same price you would pay, and we're going to get the same thing you get, and we're going to open it on camera, and we're going to configure it the same way you will. It'll take the same amount of time it's going to take you in real time, unscripted, and then we'll figure out, hey, is this something I would recommend? And what do you think? Because I think, as I purchase these, and I have the freedom of my own will to choose any brand, any model, I'm choosing what I think looks like a pretty good deal. But is it? That's where firsthand experience is going to come in. And that's what we're going to do on Friday's show. We're going to do one of these. And then on the next show, we'll do another one. And the next show, we've got 5. So that gets us, buys us some time to continue to have content while we wait for manufacturers to start introducing new products. There's been a stall in this industry, partly due to the SSD and memory, but also partly due to where we are technologically. Wi-Fi 7 is so good that before the SSD and the RAM shortage, nothing was going to come out with Wi-Fi 7. It's pretty much done. And Wi-Fi 8 is pretty much the same as Wi-Fi 7, only more reliable. It's not any faster. So I don't have any reliabilities with Wi-Fi 7. So Wi-Fi 8 will do nothing for me. It's not even out yet. So that means we'd have to wait for Wi-Fi 9, regardless of RAM and SSD. That industry in Wi-Fi is stalled because that's where they are right now. And the next thing they're coming out with doesn't really apply, at least not for me. So I could care less about Wi-Fi 8. It's the least exciting Wi-Fi ever, in my opinion. All the other Wi-Fi standards were raising speeds and security. This one isn't. First time ever, you're pretty much going to get exactly the same speed. It's just, again, reliability. We don't have any reliability issues with ours. I don't know who this is for. Clearly, there must be a market, or, you know, they wouldn't be doing it. And then the FCC says, well, you know, any new routers that come out, it's going to be a tougher process for manufacturers to be able to sell them here in the US. So any routers they're already making that have already been approved, they stay approved. But any new models coming out, the FCC says there are stricter requirements to sell here in the USA. As far as I know, only one company has been approved. That is Netgear. So Netgear got FCC approval for their new models that are not yet released to sell here in the US. Even though Netgear is a US company, they do not make their routers here, and that is a security concern for our current administration. You know, whether that's a bunch of BS, I couldn't tell you. And what about enterprise routers? They're not clear. They really haven't said anything regarding the big Cisco routers and Juniper routers that corporations use, which also means they're not saying they're in the clear either. So this is still very early in what the government's doing and what the side effects are going to be. And I got a feeling that this isn't going to be a viable solution. But regardless of that, the first company, as far as I know, the first router company to get that new FCC approval is Netgear. So if we're going to see new models of routers for sale in the United States, Netgear's got the green light. As far as I know, nobody else does yet. We'll see how that plays out. The bottom line is we're in an industry right now that's very, very slow for a number of reasons. And the RAM and SSD and GPU shortages aren't helping, but we already had other issues with regards to reaching limitations with the CPUs and the manufacturing node isn't really expanding like it used to, and Intel having some troubles and finally kind of getting their their act together and starting to produce product again. And then the cost of their goods has also gone up because there's tariffs. That makes the products more expensive. And then with the economy also, you know, gas prices higher, grocery prices are higher, then people don't have as much to spend on this kind of stuff anyway. And the stuff costs more money and is fewer and fewer to choose from. It's a mess, but it's not gonna stay this way. It's just where we're at right now. The pandemic wasn't fun either, but it wasn't like life changed forever. We just dealt with it for a couple of years and then we're back to normal. We might deal with this for a couple of years. I hope it doesn't go on that long, but it's just a lot more complicated than just RAM and SSDs. Okay, that's all it's so much more than that. So in the meantime, we're trying to bide our time so we continue to have content for you when before we were getting flooded. Would you review this? Would you review this? Would you review our router? Would you review our mini PC? We had a backlog of at least 2 weeks backlog where I can make a video every day and I still couldn't get caught up. Now it's flipped the other way. So for us to have content now, I have to do something different. Thanks to your support, we're able to go out and buy these machines that I genuinely think are good values. But what I think is a good value and what it actually is, that remains to be seen. And when we're done with these computers, we will sell them. They'll likely go for sale on eBay. And if anybody watching wants to buy one of them, let us know, because we need the money from the sale to go buy another one indefinitely until the industry corrects. We have to start buying our own content, which we were doing before anyway. But YouTube advertising was paying for it all, and that's pretty much gone away. So like I said, there's so many little pieces and they're all kind of aligning perfectly at the same time that it's very challenging on this side of the camera to keep up this type of content. That's why I was doing frozen pizza reviews. Frozen pizza cost me $6. I need to eat anyway. I can make those videos all day long, and they make pretty much the same amount of money as any other YouTube video, depending on the views. So the pizza reviews aren't here. I have a separate channel for that. And I think I've got about 8 different frozen pizzas, and there's so many frozen pizzas. I think that's going to keep me busy for a while. But if I did 10 frozen pizza reviews, it cost me less than $100. If I do 10 mini PC reviews, it's about $4,000. If they're $400 a piece and we have 10 of them, that's $4 grand. So if we can then sell them on eBay, or if a viewer wants, in the United States, you have to be in the US, wants to buy one, then we'll just take that money. We're obviously going to lose money on the sale. Why would you buy it full price? You could just order it off Amazon. So we have to sell it at a loss, but whatever we recover, we can then put towards another one. And that's how this business model is going to work until things get better. And hopefully, that'll be sooner that things get fixed rather than later, because it's it's very strange. And this whole time I've been making YouTube videos, this is never, there's nothing to prepare for this. It just sort of happened, and now we have to do the best we can. And at the same time, I want to do more than just talk. I want to be able to continue to show you products. But doing this topic, right, of tech, it's expensive. Doing food is cheap, and everybody has to eat. Not everybody's interested in tech. So this is a tough market for me to be in right now. But we have such a great community here, and I still continue to work as a computer repair technician off YouTube. That's a whole nother line of, separate income for me. But that has also slowed down quite a bit because the technology's gotten so reliable. Replacing bad motherboards or bad power supplies or bad hard drives, it still happens, but not with the frequency and the commonality that it once had. I might change 3 power supplies a year instead of 3 power supplies a month. And hard drives, very rarely. We had to change out a bad NVMe drive recently. That's maybe the first time in 3 or 4 years. So the frequency of the calls as far as repairs go, a lot of them now are just configuration issues. You just log in remotely and help the customer, and I don't have to go over there, The customer doesn't have to wait. It's cheaper, it's faster. And most of the repairs I do now are done remotely now because they're all just configuration stuff. Physically turning a screwdriver, very rare. If I get 10 support calls, 9.5 of them I can fix remotely. That's how rare having to actually get a screwdriver and open it up is these days. So that's why, who cares? If they're that reliable, why not just go with a mini PC that's not very serviceable? Because you're not servicing the other ones anyway. If it uses less power and it costs less money and it takes up less space, and you don't have to worry about dusting it out like you do a desktop, why not save the money, save the desktop, save the electricity cost, and go with a mini? So I definitely think that's the way of things, except for niche users that need to have, you know, a desktop tower for all of the added componentry in a very small minority group of computer owners that would not only justify that, but have the means to pay for it, because that's also quite expensive. And so as we see this industry changing and the culture changing, just trying to pivot and adapt and be flexible. And I'm just not sure where it's going. It's still in flux and it hasn't been decided, but you know, this is what we've got today. Mark Leibowitz said, with its sleek silver and black case, a client, oh, it looks smart. A client who's a British expatriate is coming over later. I'll ask her if she thinks it looks smart. Well, you know, looks can be deceiving. No one said that about you, Carey. No one said you look smart. This could be useful for Bitcoin storage. How big is your Bitcoin? Why would you need storage capacities or speeds rather of 40 gigabits per second to move a Bitcoin to external storage? What does that take? A half second at USB type A speeds? You know, USB 2 speeds, it would just move over in an instant. I don't know why you'd need 40 gigs per second USB 4 for Bitcoin. Yeah, Bitcoin wallet would be super teeny tiny. Andy was talking when I was like, how air is measured. He said it's cubic feet per minute. CFM. I couldn't remember what CFM stood for, but that was a while back. I'm just now seeing the comment there. So thank you for that, Andy. Dennis says, maybe you could use this to take your backups to a safe deposit box for your offsite backup. More and more that's going away as more and more people are just, with high-speed broadband, they're using offsite backup, but they're doing it over the internet, and they're no longer physically moving things to safe deposit boxes and physical locations. It's all virtualized now. And I do believe that's going to be more and more common if it isn't already. And eventually this old school method of locking something up physically is just going to be an older generation or an older company policy that will fade out. I don't think it's coming back. It's a very difficult, time-consuming way to do something, when today we have much more efficient, faster, cheaper ways to do that. Mortant joins us and says hello. And Charlie Purdy had also said hello there. Sorry, Charlie, I just caught that. David Herzog joins us as well. Yeah, I let myself get really backed up in the chat, so I'm just going to take a minute to get caught up. But while I'm catching up, if you have any final questions, I think that'll wrap it up for today's video. I don't know what else there is to talk about. This is the current state of it. This is what we received. We certainly appreciate the consideration and the honor for Zike to choose one of, for us to be one of the few to get a prototype. But again, under the consideration and that we have a prototype, it's not finished. But even if it were finished and even if it worked exactly with all the features. Me personally, I don't really know who this is for. Still confused. It does really seem to focus a lot on Apple users. And since I don't use Apple and I've never used an Apple computer, it's lost on me. Any sort of attraction to making it easier with Apple or to adding Apple features to it means nothing to us Windows users, generally speaking. Certainly me. So I may not have been the best candidate for this. They might have been better off sending it to like a content creator who does Apple stuff. Andy mentions he loves his original Zike drive. I got no complaints about this. It's warm because it's, you know, passively cooled, but so what? I've never had it overheat. I've never had it cause any problems. The worst thing I had was, I said, that cable with that one Minis Forum computer. All the other Minis Forum computers it worked fine with. And using the Origo cable, it worked fine. On the one computer it wasn't working with. So I don't, really not an issue for me. Dennis says, Carey, do the shops you service allow external drives? Yes. Well, quite often they have no choice. So you take a lawyer, for example, a law office. A law office will frequently be dealing with a legal entity, whether it's a municipality, government, court, or another law firm, where they will not transfer the data over the internet. They can either fax the document to you and have it, you know, on your fax machine, or they can FedEx you a private package that contains like a CD-ROM. That's why a lot of my lawyer clients still need CD drives on their computers, because they're in their line of work. They have to work with providing evidence to the other attorneys that they're opposing so they can prepare for the court case. And that's typically provided in a secure manner that would be old school, drop it in a FedEx envelope with tracking and a signature, and it could also contain a flash drive. So if they have a flash drive, they can plug it in and pull the data off of it. We've got antivirus and malware protection, and we have regular offsite backups. Worst case scenario, we'd lose a day's work. You know, if it happened at the very end of a day, then we'd have to roll back to the previous day's backup. So, you know, there's no perfect system, but that, for the cost and what's involved, we've never had to roll back because of a virus. That's never happened. So these companies have a really good, solid reputation with regards to, you know, they don't have a high employee turnaround. The trick is to get your employees trained and keep your employees so you don't have to keep retraining new employees who make mistakes, and that's how you get infected. If you train the employee how not to get infected, and that employee never quits, and they're there for 20 years, and most of your employees are there 20 years, and those employees are training any new hires and keeping an eye on them so it never escalates to me, they're welcome to use flash drives and CD-ROMs. It's not a problem. Between Malwarebytes, Windows Defender, and just the basic security we have, they should be fine. And any damage, should it occur, should be very minimal. But worst case, we just restore everything back to the NAS, and there should be no individual data on any of the PCs, so we can just reset the PCs and things are back to normal. Easy peasy. Mark Leibowitz said, my client just left. She didn't know if the Zike Vault looks smart or not, but it turns out she's not British after all. So I guess she's not qualified to say. Well, put the tea and crumpets away. Yeah, you called that one wrong. Bamsey says, Carey, I sent a PayPal. Did you? Let me check my... Oh, there's something waiting for me. There it is. Andreas, that must be you. $25.29 US. Hi, Carey. With you, I watch you and Mara all... Oh, I wish you and Mara all the best. I see you have office licenses for sale. Well, I don't have them for sale, but VIP-URCDKEY does. The ones that I am got links to are the 2016 and 2019 versions. They do sell other versions there, but 2016 and 2019, we listed those specifically because they're cheaper. This question is, how long will these be supported by Microsoft so that I get security updates? I do believe on 2016 and 2019, updates are done. Microsoft has officially retired those products. So you might argue, why are they still selling them? There's no real security issues that are happening, that are making the news or, happening in mass affecting Microsoft Office at this time. And it's been a while. For a while, we were dealing with viruses that were targeting Word and Excel documents and, specifically macros. Once you have macros tied down, then the only other issue that you could potentially have security-wise would be some flaw in the software that, well, Word is open or Excel is open, that an attacker could find it open port and get in there and use it, manipulate it. So the threats with Microsoft Office are significantly minimized compared to what they used to be. Now, some people are just curious people and they open up things they shouldn't open, questionable document. They're going to get a virus no matter what version of Office they use. That kind of behavior, look, a Volvo might be advertised as the safest car made, but they wouldn't guarantee that you wouldn't be seriously injured or killed if you were to get into a car accident. Just because it's a Volvo doesn't mean you are eliminated from responsibilities and making smarter decisions. So when it comes to Office 2016 and 2019, they are already retired end-of-life products. They're both ended support the same time Windows 10 did. And as far as I know, they did not extend support on those products. They're never going to get updates. Beyond whatever the last updates were in October, that's the end of it. On the other hand, they're really, really cheap. On the other hand, you can buy Office 2024 if you want to buy it over at VIP-URCDKEY. It's going to cost you 3 or 4 times more. But that's the market. And if there's really no threatening security issue with Word documents and Excel documents happening, like there's no abundance of it anymore like there used to be, then I think it's just a matter of waiting, and if and when there is a resurgence of infected people getting infected through Microsoft Office documents, whether that's Excel or Word, PowerPoint, then I'll change my tune. But it may never happen again. Instead, what they're targeting now are PDFs. Adobe's got a lot of security issues. So the last time a customer got a virus, they opened a PDF file that they shouldn't have opened. And it basically installed Screen Connect software. It didn't really do anything else, thankfully. And the customer was confused because when they looked, they didn't see any Screen Connect software. But you've got to look under your tasks, what's it called? Task scheduler, and that's where you'll find Screen Connect. And you can also typically find it in your app section of the control panel. You'll see it's been installed, but you may not otherwise find it. You won't see a menu item in your start menu. So you're like, well, if they installed, they're saying, Carey, my mouse is moving and I'm not moving it. Are you moving? I'm like, I'm not connected to you. That tells me they've got some remote access that they can't find it, but it's there. And if you know what to look for, you just uninstall it. It's not like you need antivirus because the Screen Connect software is not a virus. But the idea is that They got that remote access from an infected PDF file, not from an infected document file. But if you are worried about that, I would suggest not buying 2016 and 2019. Buy 2024 or get Office 365, which is a subscription. You're just going to keep paying for it. Or go to OpenOffice for free, or go to Google Write and Google Spreadsheet. I mean, there's a lot of alternatives to Microsoft Office. My clients need to have it because they're working with other customers. Customer says to the attorney, here's my evidence, here are my medical documents, and they're giving them in Word documents. They've even given, my poor client has been given Word perfect documents and they can't open them because they don't know how. And they go, Carey, can you open this for us? And all I do is I open it in Microsoft Word, but you have to know how to use Word to say, I'm opening a WordPerfect 5.1 WPD file, and then I resave it as a docx file, and then I send it back to them, and then I delete all the emails because it's all confidential stuff. I'm not reading it, and even if I did, it means nothing to me. I'm not an attorney. I'm not involved in the case. So I'm ignorant of all this stuff. I don't care what it says. I just need to be able to open it, convert it so they don't have to be trained, send it back, and then they're good to go. So unless the client that's using this computer from 1985 sends them any more stuff, you know, I'm happy. It's just faster. I just tell them, send it to me, I'll convert it and send it back. It doesn't happen that often, but the fact that it happens at all is shocking. Trained to Game said, what is the MSRP of this? And has Carey stopped drinking Coke? No, I still drink a soda, a Coke specifically. When I eat, I usually only have one proper meal a day. I kind of snack or graze a little bit throughout the day. And then sometimes as late as 9 o'clock at night, I'll have dinner. Sometimes 5 o'clock. It depends if I feel hungry, if I'm peckish. And with dinner, I like to have a Coke. But other than that, it doesn't really satisfy me much like it used to. 40 years of drinking Coke, nonstop, multiple, day after day, probably wasn't healthy, but more importantly, my body just said, I really don't crave this as much as I used to. And I listen to my body. If it doesn't want it, I'm not going to force it. It's telling me something, I'm listening. If I'm walking through the grocery store and I see cucumbers, and I think, I don't know the last time I ate a cucumber, but they look good to me, I'm going to buy them because my body wants it. There's some reason that stood out to me that I think is subconsciously my body telling me there's something in that you need, that you're deficient on. Otherwise, if I walk by it and it doesn't look appealing, I don't buy it. If you know, I like cucumbers, but I don't eat them every day. So that's just the way it is with me. I'm very rarely doing exactly the same thing every day. I kind of go with how I feel. Mostly it's the same every day, but it does get mixed up, right, from time to time. And I don't just wake up and make the decision, my body does, and I just listen to it. I don't know why, but it seems to have worked out for me. I haven't had any serious health issues or weight issues. Not yet. And that could just be genetics and have nothing else to do with it. But this is what I tell myself. Also, with regards to that Office question, thank you for the PayPal support. I really appreciate that. And if you have any further follow-up questions, you know, ask away. That was from Bamsy Breaker. Thank you, Bamsy. Mark Leibowitz said, it turned out my client also didn't know what to do with the 15-inch Velcro cable tie I gave her for her laptop charger. Yeah, well, if she knew all that stuff, maybe she wouldn't have hired you and she'd have done everything herself. So be careful what you ask for. Trained to Games says, thanks for explaining. I was really interested. You're a pillar. As long as I'm not a pillock. I've been called it all. Pillar's a new one, but I'll take it. It sounds a bit Roman. I'm okay with it. David Graham the other day mentioned that the mini PC I sent him was working great, and I asked him, how long have you had that now? And I never saw a response from him, and I forgot about looking for his response. So today he reminds me from what we talked about the other day. He goes, remember you had asked the other day how long I had it? I've had that mini for 2 years. So for 2 years now he's had no issues whatsoever. So any idea about minis being less reliable or less upgradable, those things aren't really necessary in modern day computers anymore. This idea that you're going to need to upgrade it, you will probably want to replace it, because no matter what you upgrade, you can only upgrade a piece, right? Everything else you can't. If you're upgrading RAM or if you're changing a CPU, you're just upgrading a piece. You're keeping everything else the same. And when you add up what that really costs, it makes more sense today to, if your system really needs to be upgraded, you probably need a new CPU, a new chipset for it, a new set of RAM, and a new NVMe. And if you have enough RAM and NVMe and you can move them over to like a bare bones, then you save even more, and it makes even more sense not to upgrade but to replace. I think people are locked into a 20-year-old mentality that computers always need to be upgraded. Computers have evolved to a point now where we've sort of reached an apogee of success, and at this point I don't think it's going to go much higher. At this point, if it hasn't reached its peak, it's definitely not climbing with the same amount of momentum as it used to. So it's definitely slowed way, way down with regards to the evolution, just to keep up, to keep upgrading, to keep up. Now it feels like it's a lot of excess, and that amount of excess is slowing down. Some people just love to have excess. They like to have a lot of stuff they don't use. Give me more of what I'm not using, and here's my money. Look, the companies that make this stuff, they don't care why you're buying it. They just want your money. I'm not that way. As a computer technician, I want my customers to be satisfied, to feel they got a good value, to not oversell them so that they're spending too much on things they're not using, and not undersell them where they're going to be calling for help and complaints constantly because what I sold wasn't right for the job. So I sit in a unique position where I'm not in it for the money, but on the other hand, I have to have money to pay my bills. So where is the balance there? You can do both. There's no evil in making money, and there's no evil in helping people, but you can't afford to help people if you can't pay your own bills. You got to help yourself first. So if people feel that they're paying me a fair amount, and I feel like I'm getting paid a fair amount for the amount of work they need, and they keep coming back for more as they expand and grow, then I see that as a very sustainable, a very satisfying way to make a living, where I don't rip anybody off, I don't take advantage, I don't overpromise and underdeliver. And the customers I have for decades. They stick around because they want to. They don't have a contractual obligation. They want to cancel the contract. If we do have one, they can cancel at any time. I never want to force a customer to work with me. I want them to want to. And I don't get rich off of it, but I love what I do. I'm very satisfied, fulfilled. The customers keep coming back. That tells me I'm doing it right. I'm going to keep doing it that way forever, as long as I can. Mark says, even 20 years ago, PCs didn't really have a lot of upgrade potential. Most of the ones I encountered that needed upgrading hadn't been outfitted properly in the first place. Well, that's my point, right? If somebody buys, like, what's the big deal with AMD? Oh, the socket AM4. We'll keep that socket and hold ourselves back from evolving just to keep a little tiny percentage of people happy is only hurting AMD. So Intel changes socket constantly, and that's what doesn't hold them back from evolving the chip. And some might argue, well, but then AMD's chip's still better. Well, depends what you use it for. If you're interested in gaming, I'd agree with you. But if you're interested in doing anything else, I would argue the Intel's the better chip. But it just really, I don't have a dog in the race. I used to work for Intel, but I'm not loyal to them. I mean, if Intel has a worse chip, they have a worse chip. It's not like I get paid any more or any less if I like it or not. It's my job to provide my customer with what the customer needs, wants, desires, what they're paying for. If a customer wants AMD, it doesn't matter to me. It's not like I'm going to talk them out of it. I don't care. It builds the same. It costs about the same. And when it's all said and done, they probably can't tell the difference anyway. It's just some people on the internet that make this into something. And it's very strange to live on two separate planets. There's the planet internet, and then there's the planet Earth. And there's two entirely different types of cultures and values that, let's face it, planet Earth is a lot bigger of a population than planet internet. So to me, the internet's the minority, and they're the sort of the, I don't want to say that it's bad or negative, but it's not common behavior that I witness where I live in society that I see in real life. I only see it online. And when I see it online, I see it in abundance. Like, it's just everywhere. People are talking about this weird stuff. And when I go real life and talk to real customers and real people in face-to-face, never talked about. It's not like they're talking a little bit here and the same thing, they're talking a little bit more. No, they're talking about an entirely, it might as well be a whole nother language on the internet and a whole nother point of interest that does not exist at all, in my experience, in the real world, or if it exists, it's so insignificant as to not I don't have any recollection of anybody discussing, like, why is my CPU running hot, or, you know, why is my NVMe not going 100 megabytes faster? These aren't conversations that happen in real life. Not to me. And I've been doing this business since 1991. I've been in business for 35 years. Never had these conversations, but I can't escape them online. And if anybody can explain that to me, it's fascinating psychology. Because aren't the same people I'm talking to in real life some of the same people I'm talking to online? I guess not, because it's a very different conversation. And it's in abundance. It's very strange. One place has it in abundance and one place doesn't have it at all. Very, very weird. To me, anyway. I just see that and I'm like, why is this not kind of the same? Why are the people on the right worried about things that the people on the left, and I don't mean that politically, I just mean if the internet's the right side, and the internet's, if the internet's the right side and the real world, the planet Earth is on the left side, the opposite side, why do we care about different things regarding a computer on one side that we don't care about at all on the other side? Is that because only people on one side have the problem? And if so, why? What are they doing differently than people on the other side that's giving them the problem? Or the opposite, what are people doing on the other side that's not giving them this problem? And the best that I can tell is it's psychological. They're not being fed toxic information to feed anxiety. So if you never had it, if you were never fed this anxiety-ridden data online, people aren't doing it in real life. They're only conveying this anxiety online. So only people online would be affected by it. So if it's not being talked about in real life, then there's nothing to have anxiety about because you don't know any better. On the other hand, you might think you know better when in fact there's been nothing there the whole time and it's all an illusion. I prefer reality. I'm a big fan of reality. You can't tell. That's why we film this live, unscripted and unrehearsed, so we're real. And I guess if you're a fan of reality, probably don't want to spend too much time online. I think I just figured this out. All right. Anyway, back over to the chat. David Herzog said, great stream as always. Thank you, David. Dennis says, internet hype. Yeah, I suppose. Is it hype to scare people? I see people worrying about, what about my boot certificate's going to expire in June? And I'm like, who are you? I'm a guy who bought a mini PC and my boot certificate, I read online, it's going to expire in June. What do I do? You don't do anything. That's not your job. It's not for you to worry about. Well, it's my mini PC. How dare you tell me what I should worry about? I go, I don't mean it like that. What I mean is, you're not an engineer. You're not a BIOS developer. You don't code Windows. It's not in your purview. It's not your responsibility. And even if it were, you're unqualified. But what am I going to do in June? What makes you different than the rest of us? Like, this is what I want to say. What makes you worry about it when the rest of us aren't worried about it? What's so special about you that you think it's just you and the heck with everybody else? Let me ask you a question. Does your neck turn? Look around you. What's everybody else doing? Well, they're not doing anything. Nor should you, because this is a problem that'll take care of itself. Now, if and when June happens and your boot security certificate expires, you're going to know. But I don't want it to expire. That's not on you to decide. You're the end user. You're not the manufacturer. You're not the operating system maker. This is not for you. It's not your problem until and if it becomes your problem. It is nothing you can do. Nothing. But I'm going to have my certificate expire if they don't do it. You and everybody else. Okay? There's a whole world of computer owners around you. This isn't about you. So what happens if my boot security certificate expires? I won't be able to boot my machine. Oh my God, here we go. You can boot your machine fine, turn secure boot off in your BIOS. But I really want secure boot on. Well, then you won't be able to boot anymore if you turn it on. But likely what's going to happen is you're going to get an update. It might happen through Windows updates. It could be a BIOS update. I don't know. It depends how the manufacturers and Windows handle it between now and June. And you won't even know it happened. It'll just happen. In June, it'll turn into July, and guess what? Your system's been running fine the whole time, and the whole point of this discussion was completely a waste of time, and your anxiety is unjustified because you don't understand what you're talking about, but you've got information online that spooked you, and now you're worried about it, as if you're the only one. There's a whole world of computer owners that need to be taken care of who don't know what a secure boot certificate is, nor could they care, and nor will it ever affect them because it'll be taken care of in the background through Windows updates, and they won't even know it happened. If it turns out it doesn't happen for you, you'll know. And all you got to do is turn your secure boot off, and your system will boot fine. And in the meantime, you can work with your manufacturer to isolate, not isolate, but rather get a solution from their support. But likely that'll never be a bridge that ever happens, and you're trying to prevent something that you have no control over, that you cannot yourself do anything about. That's what Microsoft has to do, and or your PC maker. So if your PC maker drops the ball in June and now you can't boot, and it's too much effort for you to turn secure boot off, and you find that unacceptable, that's between you and your PC maker. When it happens, not right now, because it's likely not going to happen. But this is what happens online. Nobody in real life calls my company and says, I read online that my boot certificates are going to expire in June. What do we do? That's my job. I'll tell you if there's something you need to be worried about. When you hire me to maintain your company, that's my job. That's what you pay me for. And if I need to bring something to your attention, I will. So please don't tell me how to do my job. And there's nothing for you to be concerned about. I got your back. Everything's being taken care of. That's why you pay me. And nothing's changed. If anything does change, you'll hear it from me, not from the internet. Okay. Or if you experience something unexpected and now the system doesn't boot, you call me, I'll fix it. Don't worry. No different than any other day. Nothing's different today or tomorrow or in June, other than anxiety from poisoned information online that people don't fully comprehend. The information is real and the information is accurate, but the information is not for you. It's for developers and BIOS manufacturers, PC manufacturers. When you read about OpenClaw, who's that for? Are you a developer? Probably not. When you hear about LLMs, are you running an LLM? You probably aren't. And if you are, you're one of the very few. So why are there all these discussions about it? Because there's a lot of developers talking to each other online, and you just happen to be listening in on it, or the articles are being published about what they're talking about. But if you're not in that line of work and you don't have that interest, none of that information applies to you. They might as well be talking about remote controlled airplanes, little RC airplanes. If you're not an RC airplane hobbyist, what do you care what the new motors and batteries can do? You don't have that interest. It's not for you. But they're publishing it online. Yes, they are. Because they're interested in it, because they're into that. That's their thing. It's not your thing. It doesn't apply to you. It might be interesting that people are using LLMs and OpenClaw to do things in AI, but those are developers. Those aren't regular folks that just use a computer at home. These aren't regular, common computer users. These are developers or home lab enthusiasts that play around with developing because they find it fun. That's all it is. It doesn't affect you yet. It will one day, and when that day comes, I'm here to to keep you up to date. That's what my job is what I do. Geez, I had people going, what am I going to do with my Windows 10 computer when Windows 10 expires? And they were asking me 3 or 4 years before Windows 10 expired. What? That's so far from now. What are you worried about? Let's wait till we get closer to the deadline, see what happens between now and then. And what do you know? Microsoft extended it another year. So all of that anxiety and panic and worry and concern was all a complete waste of time and energy trying to control something you have no control over. So when and if something happens, we'll handle it. But if it doesn't happen, just make backups. You're fine. Regardless, have backups. It doesn't matter what happens. That's all I'm trying to say. That's tough. That's really tough sometimes to have these discussions with people online because people in real life don't have these discussions with me. Yeah, recently, because Windows updates yesterday, right? Tuesday was the second Tuesday of the month, and Microsoft updated the Security Center to give you the status to report your Secure Boot certificate status. Again, that's really for technicians. That's not for home users. It's there for informational purposes that a home user really should not have any need or interest in, honestly. That's really just for home enthusiasts, and primarily who it's really for are technicians and people like manufacturers to make sure that they do what they need to do between now and when this certificate expires if they haven't already done it, and most have already done it. So what few remain may be like some mini PC you bought off AliExpress with no known manufacturer and no BIOS update. Well, that's what happens when you bought cheap, right? And there's nothing you're going to be able to do other than turn off Secure Boot, which you don't need to have that anyway, not at this time. If that changes where Windows 11 now requires it, that'll be a different story, but that computer could die or be replaced before that happens. So until it happens, it's not an issue, and it may never ever be an issue for a number of reasons. I don't know how else I can explain this. So I will continue to fight the good fight to try my best to educate people who insist on wanting to remain ignorant and scared. One of the ways you can stop being scared or have anxiety about, I'm just going to call it anxiety, and I'm going to say anxiety and fear are kind of the same thing. Fear is just a lack of knowledge. Once you understand what it is you're afraid of, you probably won't be afraid of it anymore. Some people just like fear. Some people pay money to go to a horror movie so they can be scared. I would not pay money to be scared. I don't like being scared. And where I'm different than other people is if there's a noise. Say you're in your bedroom at night and the lights are out and it's the middle of the night and you hear a weird noise. And people, like in the TV and the movies, they go, "Oh my, what was that?" I don't react that way. I go, "Oh, I wonder what that was. I want to go find out." I do the exact opposite. I need to know, what did I just hear? And I don't think it's somebody breaking in, but clearly it could be. But since nobody's ever broken in to any house I've ever lived in my entire life, it's not like I have a precedent to be worried. I don't have any PTSD. It's all just poison from media, right? Scaring a home invasion. Man, those home invasions, those people know each other in most cases, and they're not telling you the whole story. And they were probably doing some deviant thing. They're buying drugs or doing something, didn't pay. Somebody did something and they knew each other, and there's a reason why they targeted that person. And quite often the media doesn't cover that. Not to say those random home invasions don't happen, but they're pretty damn rare. And what are the odds of all the houses in your neighborhood, yours was the one picked? So when I hear a noise, I don't go to fear, I go to curiosity. Did something fall over? Is something leaking? I want to go deal with it right now before it gets worse. Let me find out what it was. And if I don't find out what it was, I can't sleep because I don't have an answer. But it's not because I'm afraid of, somebody broke in and now they're hiding in the house. That's not what I'm thinking. I'm thinking something fell or broke. I was hearing a pounding against the wall. Bang, 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 bang. I'm like, what is that? It's annoying. Well, it was a windy day and it was hitting a cable that was against the wall. And I said, I almost solved this problem, and I got my wire cutters because it was just a loose cable that I hadn't yet completely removed. I cut one end of it away and the rest of it was hanging. So I just got the ladder, I cut it way up high, and I still haven't removed it. But now the wind can blow it all at once and it doesn't slam up against the house, and it's problem solved. Education defeats fear. So with that, David Graham said, if someone breaks in, they won't be hiding. They will be if I catch them. If they know what's good for them. Anyway, again, I want to say thank you to Zike for including us into such an early look into the product development of this. And it does leave me a little confused. It may not be a product for me. It doesn't mean it's a bad product, or it doesn't mean it's not worth the price they're asking if you have a need for it. I'd be curious what your thoughts are if you want to leave them in the comments below the video. And I think Zike would also appreciate feedback. That's why they sent it to us. And I think they want people to be honest. You don't have to worry about, don't insult them, don't hurt their feelings or anything. But at the same time, be honest. And if there's ways that you think they could add value to this, what is it? Tell them. Leave it in the comments. They'll read the comments. If there's things about it you think are worthless, say that's what you think. You're welcome to your opinion. Just don't be rude. And Zike will take all that under consideration and perhaps make a product that appeals to more people as a result of the feedback. That's the goal. It's not to put anybody down. It's to help build people up and to say, hey, personally, I don't see the benefit of this. What would it take for me to see a benefit of this? I need an on-off switch. I need to get rid of that little screw, get rid of the fingerprint reader. As far as the Apple stuff, it doesn't affect me either way, so I don't care. But there's no added value for a Windows user to pay extra for Apple features. What else would I do? Make it USB 4 version 2, V2. Make it 80 gigabits per second. Now we're talking, because we're going to double the speed to 6,000 instead of 3,800. We could go 6,000, 7,000. Probably faster now that I think about it. Should be able to do up to 8,000, in total data, but in actual data transfer, should be mathematically somewhere around 7,500. the maximum Gen 4. They started coming out with Thunderbolt 5 enclosures, but I don't have any Windows-based computers with a Thunderbolt 5 controller. Not yet. I think they're coming next year, but we don't have them. Minis Forum doesn't make a single computer with Thunderbolt 5, as far as I know. And there are some Thunderbolt-ish, Thunderbolt 5-ish ports, but they're not exactly Thunderbolt 5. So Thunderbolt 5 would offer 120 gigabits a second. That'd be 12,000 megabytes per second. That'd be Gen 5 level NVMe enclosure, which is as fast as they run inside the computer at the Gen 5 supported chipset. Do you really need that on an external drive? Who says you need it just to want it, right? But I'm sure it would be also very expensive, as the drives are also more expensive as well, and you're going to deal with more heat. So anyway, those are my thoughts on it, just to give you an example. I still really like the original. I have no complaints about this. Just that one time with that Minis Forum model, I don't know who's to blame on that, but I think this is a lot easier to open. I like there's no fan on it. I like the cable's a little longer. I like that it's cheaper, and I like that it's available to buy today. So those are my thoughts. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with me today. Thank you all for being members, those of you that are members. Thank you for the gift cards from Buster and Mark Gaines and Charlie Purdy. And thank you as well to sorry, there's a different name in PayPal, and I don't know if you want me to use it. So I'm looking for your handle in the chat. Is it Barnes? Bamsey Banker? Bamsey Breaker? Thank you for not only your question, but also your contribution as well. I think that's everybody. Coming up on Friday, we're doing a mini PC review, and I should have, by Friday, 5 different models to pick from. And all of them are bare bones models except one, and that's the GMK Tech M8, or Mate, I don't know. That's the only one I've ordered that's got RAM and storage on it. So I think that's the one I'm going to do on Friday. And then all the others we've got remaining, as we do in future broadcasts, I've got RAM and storage, and I intend to sell them with the RAM and storage I put into them. And at least until I run out, which should be a while, I think. We'll see what happens first. If I run out of mini PCs or I run out of RAM and storage, cross that bridge when I get to it. I haven't counted all the different DDR5 and DDR4 and SSDs I've got, but my intention is to put them in during the live video, and when the video's done, to sell those units shortly thereafter with the RAM and storage already in them, because I don't want them coming back to me because somebody screwed it up with incompatible parts or broke it when they opened it. So if I can sell it working and the customer gets it and breaks it, it's not on me, right? That's the way I'm looking at it. And it also gives me a way to sell the RAM and storage in a way that I'm not just selling the RAM and storage where the customer can mishandle it and damage it and then blame me for, I don't want to get into that. So this is a much more secure way for me to sell one time and not deal with any support stuff, because I'm already losing money, and the last thing I want to do is deal with support calls that I'm doing for free on something I lost money on. How does that make any sense? And I'm not saying I wouldn't help somebody. I will. I'll do the best I can. But I'm trying to avoid that scenario right out of the gate. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to prevent that. If I didn't support it, I guess I wouldn't care. But because I am supporting it, I don't want to have to get a call for support. That's all I'm trying to say in a lot of words. I think that's going to wrap it up for me for today. Thank you to Mara for all the work she does as our channel administrator, creating our thumbnails and putting all the links together. She arranged all the communication with Zike and still does so to this day. I've never talked to them directly. That's all Mara's job behind the scenes, and it's a lot of effort, a lot of back and forth of understanding what are you sending, what do you want us to do, Where the documentation, how do you answer a question? She's doing all that, and that's just for one thing. Think about that. All right, and that's gonna wrap it up. Hold on, I'm seeing something here. Jim Kenny says, review completed 1 in a year, big difference. Review completed 1 in a year. Am I reading it wrong, or are we missing a whole bunch of words in context? Because I'm not quite sure what you're asking me, Jim. Review completed 1. I have a problem with those 3 words. Review completed 1 in a year. Review of what? Completed when? A difference against what? I need some context. I desperately want to understand this question. Jim Kenny said this is a prototype. This is a prototype. We'll be very clear on this. This is not a completed project. Are you saying review in 6 months when the product is finalized? Are you suggesting review it in 6 months when it's done and compare it to what? Is that what you're saying? Andy says raccoons like to run up on the top of the roof and jump in the air. The thud they land is somewhat disconcerting. Yeah, we don't have raccoons. Trash pandas. You don't see them too often in Phoenix. Maybe if you were in northern Arizona, but not so much. I mean, they're here, but you will very rarely ever see one. It's pretty uncommon in the city. And Jim Kenny says yes. All right. So you're saying wait till we have a completed unit when it's all said and done, and then see what the difference is. That's our intent. I don't think Zike intends to get our feedback and then leave us high and dry. We'll see. It obviously requires the cooperation from Zike. And I guess the last thing I need to do, I want to put that little teeny tiny screw back, because I know that is just going to get lost. I'm telling you, if that drops even onto a tile floor, you're just not going to find it. It's so teeny tiny. So let me put it back. And again, this screwdriver not being magnetized makes me nervous. But let me get my magnifying glasses so I can see this. And maybe I should just magnetize this darn thing myself. Don't I have a magnetizer in here? No? Maybe it's the other drawer? I swear I had it in here. How about if I cheat? What if I take this magnet off of here? That'll work. All right. Just cheat a little bit. We'll MacGyver it. Make sure if I drop it, it lands on the desk, because otherwise that screw is gone. I'm not sure putting a security screw in here that's a proprietary design is a good idea. This little teeny tiny Torx, I'm curious what size that is. That is super teeny tiny. And even though it may not ship with that, what is it shipping with now is what I'm asking. So let's find out. This is one of the smallest ones I have. There's one smaller than this little tiny thing. That's the right one. I nailed it on the first try. This is a T4, in case you were curious, a T4 Torx. Now we know. At least we know the prototype details. And how different that ends up being from the final shipping product. Could be big difference, could be very minor difference. I don't know yet. And I do want to put everything back. I forget how this goes in. There. And then this and this. It was weird to receive a product in a bag and not receive it with in a box or documentation. Which kind of made me feel like I was in like a skunkworks project. Don't tell anybody. But companies never let me in that early before. So that was really neat. On the other hand, it also made it, I had to figure everything out on my own. And I may not have figured it all out because I don't know. What did I do with the little Ziploc bag? I was going to put this and this back in a little bag the way we started the video and set it off to the side to revisit in the future when they do have a final product that we can compare them. So again, a shout out and a thank you to our friends over at Zike. And I think that's going to wrap it up. We will see you all again on Friday, 1 o'clock Phoenix, which is currently Pacific time. And I hope you'll join us for the GMK Tech M8 mini PC review, which I think is one of the best deals in mini PCs right now. On paper. We'll find out. Thanks for watching. Thanks again to all the members and to all the viewers and participants in the chat for hanging out with me today. And we'll look forward to seeing you again Friday, 1 p.m. Hope you'll join us then. Until Friday, bye for now.